Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Mayor. Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, Cassandra. Welcome. Hello, Chief. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, and Ms. Cassandra and Ms. Rodriguez.
Okay, it's 5:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Romero, would you like to lead us in a moment of recognition or silence?
Yes, I'd just like to take a moment of silence, first of all, to all those in our community that have passed in the past month. And also a moment of silence for, we know that it's Law Enforcement Appreciation Week, and throughout the country, so many officers have put their lives on the line every single day, and we've lost some of those officers. So at this time, take a moment of silence. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Roll call, please. I think we did this backwards, didn't we?
That's okay, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Louis Trujillo,
Present.
Councilor David Romero.
Here.
Councilor Elaine Rodriguez,
Present.
Councilor Michael Montoya,
Present.
Councilor David Ulivari Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
I will
Second, Mr.
second
Mayor.
that, sir.
Okay, second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Councilor Montoya,
Yes.
Councilor Ulivari Jr.,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Mr. Mayor, we have no
Judge.
public input at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Moving on to mayor's appointments, reports, recognitions, and proclamations.
Yes. How are you, Judge? So we have a proclamation, and it's the proclamation for Peace Officers Memorial Day. So in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation which designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which that date falls as National Police Week. Whereas during National Police Week, Peace Officers Memorial Day is dedicated to those who have been killed or disabled in the line of duty. And whereas it is important that all citizens throughout our country know and understand the problems, duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agencies, and that members of our law enforcement agencies recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas the City of Las Vegas Police Department plays an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms which have been guaranteed by the Constitution to their American citizens, and whereas National Police Week recognizes the contributions, dedications, and selfless effort efforts from the men and women of the City of Las Vegas Police Department who unceasingly providing a vital public service. And whereas I, Louis Trujillo, Mayor of the City of Las Vegas, proclaim March 9th through the 15th, 2021 as National Police Week in the City of Las Vegas to urge all citizens commemorating police officers past and present who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their community. In so doing, have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. Thank you, and thank you to all the police officers in our city and the state as well. Our city police, yesterday we had an inspection that went really well. I was very impressed, and we have some really good officers out there defending Las Vegas. And with that, Chief, I'd like to thank you and your department for all the work that you do.
Mayor and Council, thank you very much for that proclamation. It's a great to see the support that we're receiving from Mayor and Council and our city manager. I think it speaks volumes to the community that you are behind us during these times of, calling for police reform and other reforms that are going to be looked at through law enforcement. So again, thank you, and I think our officers are very appreciated.
Thank you very much. And no, we have not defunded the police department. In fact, we're funding them very well with lots of good equipment and police cars and so forth. So thank you again, Chief. The next recognition, I'll hand over to Mr. Montoya. Mr. Montoya has been working closely with the Rio Gallinas Riverwalk, and he wants to take a few moments to recognize two people who have been very instrumental in getting the Riverwalk project going and blessing us with their presence and their hard work and dedication and all the knowledge of our Gallinas River. And I personally want to thank you as mayor, Dr. Wados and Leah Knudsen, for all the work that you've done in our community. Mr. Montoya?
I was going to keep the names in suspense till the end.
I stole your thunder.
Yeah, it is my honor to present this El Bueno Vecino Award on behalf of Mayor and Council tonight to these two young, outstanding individuals that have put in their hard time, efforts, and dedicating themselves to a well-worth community project that everyone of all age groups and walks of life will be able to enjoy. They saw a vision and followed it through. I know for a fact that they faced many challenges and maybe wanted to give up at a time or two, but they stayed focused, and with their perseverance in leaving our community a better place than when they found it, bringing us to this present moment. They have fought hard for the funding, have attended endless amounts of meetings. They have worked with the city engineer and staff on this project, including a large group of volunteers, having gotten input from the community, gotten other agencies involved, have had high school and college students involvement, worked with different city committees, the Friends of the Gallinas River, Tierras y Montes, the Watershed Alliance, the San Miguel County Commission. And I could go on and on all night. Mr. Mayor and Council will be presented with a final plan and design of Phase 1 of the Gallinas Riverwalk project at our next City Council meeting. These two individuals have demonstrated what a good vecino is all about, a good neighbor. On behalf of Mayor and Council, I present to you this Outstanding Achievement Award with much gratitude for your unselfishness and making our community a better place to live in. To Dr. Elizabeth Juarez and Ms. Leah Knudsen, and the many volunteers that have helped you along the way to bring us to this point. Congratulations and job well done. Oops.
You're welcome to.
I'd like to thank, can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I can't tell. I'd like to thank Mayor and City Council and all of the staff of the City of Las Vegas. You've been wonderful supporters, and you've been our left hand and our right hand as we've moved forward in this journey. It's been a joy to work with you, but it's been equal a joy to work with this community and watch everybody in the community come together on the banks of the Gainas. We've joined hands, we've joined shovels and gloves, and we've done amazing things, but we couldn't do it alone. We need the entire community, and they've been there for us time and time again. So we're pleased to see the community on the river as we were in our founding days. So thank you very much. Did you want to say something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, you're muted.
There we go. So, I usually have a puppy at every meeting in here, but because of COVID, until we go back into an open forum, we won't have a puppy in here, but the animal shelter next door brought me this adorable picture. Just look at him. His name is Atticus. He's a shy boy when he first meets you, but he's very playful once he gets a chance to know you. He loves going on long walks and finding sticks to chew on. So Atticus is looking for a home for somebody who will take him on walks and be goofy like he is. So the dog adoption is $100. That includes spay and neuter, age-appropriate vaccines, a microchip, and a city county license applicable. So come by and support the AWC. They're right next door to the city. They do wonderful work, and Atticus will be waiting for you for you to take him home if I don't take him home before you do. So come and get Atticus. He needs you. Bye-bye. Poor my little Atticus. I'm going to have to go see him tomorrow. Councilors' reports. Councilors, Mr. Montoya?
Councilor Montoya, you're muted.
There you go. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd just like to inform Mayor and Council that I met with Congresswoman Teresa Ledger Fernandez's staff on April 30th, as well as our city manager and our utilities director. And he'll probably give a report on next meeting. But the application that we submitted for road funding for Legion Drive was pretty much denied due to this issue that I guess we had to put it in the STIP program, but that wasn't clarified at the time that staff worked on trying to get it in that funding. But either way, I think the Gainas project is going through, and hopefully that one met all criteria for that. The other thing I want to touch base on, Mr. Mayor, is I've gotten phone calls and emails and text messages on still, I guess, our committees, boards, and commissions are failing as far as the OMA in compliance. And I would request again that we give him training to all chairs and vice chairs of every organization so that they can be informed and aware and so that we can all be in compliance. And if anybody doesn't want to go to training or whatever, well, let us know and I'll be happy to put you on the agenda for replacement. It's that simple. The other thing is I just didn't want the citizens to miss out on our Amnesty Day that we had. I know the city manager will, again, he doesn't have a city manager's report on this agenda, but he'll give us the numbers, the figures, and the costs and how much trash was thrown and all this and the other. But I just want to thank the staff and everybody else that worked that Saturday to clean our city. And there was a big amount of trash. And I can tell you that it was a $10,000 bill to the city of Las Vegas. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Councilors?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Romero?
First off, I just want to continue to thank the Public Works Department. I know that they're working hard and they're a limited crew, and we know that we all receive calls on potholes that haven't been filled or have been reported, and they're doing the best that they can with the amount of staff that they have. And I just want to commend Danny and his staff, and they're doing the best that they can. I did ask Maria to send us, and I'm not sure if all of you have received it yet, but to send us a schedule so at least that when we do get our calls, pertaining to potholes that have been reported, at least we would be able to let them know within, a week or so which ones would be getting done. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that should do.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Councilors?
Mr. Mayor, I have
Dr. Rodriguez, go ahead.
I just wanted to let everyone know that I have been meeting with residents on Pecos and Commerce, just making sure I'm taking pictures of the roads. I did send some pictures into the city manager in regards to some of the roads and wanted to get an update on repairing some of those roads. Also, I'm working with the maintenance personnel for IMC. They had brought an issue up last year, but we couldn't address it because it was winter and it was snowing. But there's some problems with the elm trees that have overgrown, and the sidewalks are uneven and the gutters are actually too high. And the drainage is broken. Again, I haven't received any status report on that. And so I'm continuing to work on a couple of those issues. I also, and I thank you for some of the reports that have come to us via email, because I am getting multiple emails and calls regarding weeds. And we knew this was going to happen because we didn't really have much of a spring. We went from winter and cold and now to raining and a spring where weeds are all over. So I did let them know that, our public works and we'll be working on that. It just takes time to kind of move into a lot of those areas. And one of the major issues that I got a couple of complaints on was New Mexico Highlands University. So I'm communicating with them regarding their weeds, and they did go out and do some of the maintenance because many of the residents say, that's kind of a main building. People come in through that area, and that should be cleaned up, for tourists who are coming in. Also, for any prospective students that are coming in, students don't want to see buildings with weeds and trash all over that would stop them from coming. So that's kind of my report.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Ulibarri?
I just want to thank the city crews to the street department on the potholes. I got some calls from citizens. and they're real happy on not all the piles that they've been doing. We still need a lot. And then on Rodriguez Field, the fields look pretty bad. I don't know if we're going to get some water in there, water in there, so we can start getting some green grass out there. They look real dry and that. Maybe Aaron, Mr. Aron can look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ulibarri. And I would like to say, I'm sorry, I know this is the councilor's report, but I'd like to recognize Congresswoman Teresa Leger Fernandez. She came to Las Vegas last Friday and walked the Riverwalk with us, and she was so excited about the project, and she's just it's really nice to see her. She's really in contact with her constituents, and I just want to recognize Teresa Leger Fernandez for that. Next item.
Mr. Mayor, next item is Police Chief's report. Mr. Chief Crispy.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor, City Manager, councilors, Ms. Councilman, Councilwoman. Before I begin, we did have a graduate today at the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy. He was there for 16 weeks, 16 long weeks, you could say. So we did get one today, excuse me. That was Officer Pat Mays. He did graduate from the academy today. So he'll be coming back to work, and no rest, right? He'll be starting tomorrow night, graveyard at Thursday night. So no rest for his accomplishments, but we look forward to getting him back to us. Also, we have 2 other certified law enforcement that want to come on board. And we also have 1 uncertified that is going through the process right now. So we're trying to pick up our numbers. I think even with what's going on in law enforcement these days, people still want to protect and serve their communities that they live in or live by. So we're gracious for that. Also, yesterday at our inspection, we did present City Manager, Councilman Montoya, Councilman Romero. The mayor left early. Councilman Ulibarri and Councilman Rodriguez, we do have your certificates of appreciation for all that you do for the City of Las Vegas Police Department. So we did also have dignitary Senator Pete Campos and State Representative Castellano wasn't able to make it, but we also presented them with some awards for us for allotting us the $185,000 for our vehicles. Overall, our inspection went very well. We are starting to, once we were able to start sending our officers to training, we have been doing that. The fiscal year is going to end here soon, so we'll be stopping and then picking it back up in July. Our officers are going to multiple trainings, mid-management courses, interview interrogations, any type of training that we could get them to better their career pathway. We do still have some more recruits. We are testing them on a weekly basis or whenever we can do it. Our recruiting officer, Sergeant Latalo, has been doing a great job on that for us. So, this month in May, we had 1,258 calls for service. Our officers are working the 1,258 calls for service and also working the movie duty, working Friday al fresco. So we are everywhere, and we're stretched thin. We had 280 traffic citations that were issued. And again, our community policing, where our officers are staying 1 month in their district, is really paying off for us. I think we had 0 burglaries reported again this month. So, our officers are out there in their districts, talking to the citizens, doing that community policing with them. So, that's pretty much my report on those areas. We did take drugs off the street again this month, and we're going to start doing more proactive patrols on drug activity and things like that. So if anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you. Adrian, I'd like at some point if we could meet regarding the 311 app for reporting any drug activities in neighborhoods. If we could possibly utilize that or any kind of crime at that.
Yes, I think we have it up, but I don't think it states that. I got to look at it. Also, we have our Crime Stopper line back up, and that's we have our Crime Stopper line back up. It was down for a while there. That's 454-8444-505.
I do have a question for you, Police Chief Crispin. I wanted to know, because I couldn't recall, but when we started putting the cameras into Las Vegas, do you know if there was any announcement made to the public about it, or if they did a kind of newspaper article in the Optic about it, if you were interviewed in regards to the cameras going up in our community?
I don't think we were interviewed on it, but we did announce it at council. We did announce it at the council meeting when it was approved by council that we were going to do that.
What I'm a little concerned because I'm getting text messages and emails from people wanting to know why we have cameras up in our community. At first, they thought it was in regards to the movie industry, and I don't think a lot of people watch. They may not watch city council meetings. So is there any way we can get that information out to the public via the newspaper just to inform them about the cameras and the purpose of the cameras? That's what I would recommend, but I'd like to hear from my fellow councilmen also on that.
We can do that. I think, these cameras are to deter the crime that's being committed in Las Vegas and also for public safety reasons. These cameras have really helped us in solving many crimes. So I think people our citizens are starting to pay attention to what's going on and finally seeing them up there. We can address that and advertise, let them know that we do have cameras around Las Vegas. I believe we have 6, and I believe we're installing 3 more here shortly on New Mexico Avenue and in other places.
Yeah, that'd be great. We don't seem to do a very good job in communicating a lot of what city council and the departments are doing, and just to inform the public. It doesn't seem as though we have like a communication director that informs the public of what's happening and what's going on. And I'm getting emails, and people are just a little concerned because they're not sure why we have cameras in our community. But what you just mentioned would be nice to go into a newspaper or a radio. If we do anything regarding the radio, that'd be great.
And we did announce it on the radio back in August, September. But also, Dr. Rodriguez, when your constituents have questions, you could refer them to myself or Deputy Chief.
And I do. I do. I don't know if they choose not to call, but I do get refer them to if they need any clarification or to the city manager. But I just think it'd be nice if we can do a little bit more communication in regards to not just what you're doing, but a lot of what's going on in regards to the potholes, in regards to repair. It just doesn't seem like the city and residents are getting that information. I'm not sure the reason for that, but that's something that we probably can work on in the future. Thank you.
Dr. Rodriguez, I'd like to just inform you that there's an RFP going out for a public information officer here shortly, and hopefully we'll get somebody on board that will do all the news, all the news stories and get the word out a lot better. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Thank you. Next order of business, Mr. Romero.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Mr. Romero.
Okay, sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. Chief, how many open positions do we have at this time?
We have 11 positions open right now. We're trying to fill those.
And are those, what type of positions are those? Patrol or what are they?
Those are all patrol positions. We just lost one lieutenant position. Mr. Dylan Lieutenant Encinias went to be at the DA's office, so we lost him. He went to work at the DA's office. So that's going to be one lieutenant position that's open.
Okay.
So actually, we have 2 lieutenant positions and 11 patrol.
Okay. And then my next comment was going to kind of, it's relative to what Councilor Rodriguez was saying is, you know, we're doing some good things within the PD. And I think an ad campaign from the police department, and I don't know if we have the budget or if you have a budget to do something like that to where we can acknowledge some of the positive things that are happening within the department. You mentioned the Crime Stopper, and I'm going to say this publicly because in attending yesterday and speaking with some of the officers, and in speaking of officers that we've lost in the past, I know we have a community page on Facebook that's the Rock community page, and the intent was totally, I mean, a good thing, but I think it's become a burden to police officers nowadays because a lot of things that are happening within our community are reported on that Raw page and not through the proper channels. And then it becomes gossip and it's become, little things where our police department is put down and our officers are this or our officers are that. And we have great officers within our community. And, and I did have an opportunity to speak with the mayor and, maybe we could, have that conversation. And I mean, of course, we want, we have Crime Stoppers. There's proper avenues to report some of these things that are happening, and we got to, of course, social media. We're in the digital age. These are all positive, but we don't have an officer sitting on the Raw page waiting for calls to come in on Raw. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of been. I'll be honest. It's something bad that I feel that we're losing officers and it's making officers look bad, and I don't appreciate that. But it is what it is. We can't control it, but at least if we could speak to some of the individuals that oversee that, and let's put continue to put positive within this community. The last thing, Chief, could you kind of describe? I know there was kind of a story on it. The police advisory. I haven't had a chance to review any of the meetings. But what are you guys addressing now through that committee right now?
So right now, as some believe that, and under the charter, they are waiting for marching orders from the council. I understand that some of the marching orders are to oversee our department or to. And that's what it says in the charter. Right now, I have asked them to help me design a survey for the community, for the citizens of Las Vegas, to do a survey for law enforcement, for our department, to see where we stand with our community, to see what kind of not only customer service, but protection we are providing for our community, and to see where we need to improve as we move forward in the future. They want to be an oversight committee for policy and procedures, and with that, I have some reservations, and the only reason why is right now we're an accredited agency, and we fall under the best practices through the New Mexico Municipal League Law Enforcement Council. There's CALEA out there that some agencies are in CALEA, and CALEA cost about $150,000 to get accredited through them. They have over 1,000 and some standards that they have to meet. Under the New Mexico Law Enforcement accreditation, we meet 212 standards. And so we meet those standards and we operate under those standards every day. in one form or another. So, I understand that an oversight committee, that's what it's called. But, right now that's what they're doing and waiting for your marching orders.
Okay.
I think we would have to sit down and really think. Some of these, some of my members aren't law enforcement, and that's where, how are they going to bring a policy to us and say we want to use this policy, or we want to be able to input this policy for the Las Vegas Police Department, or the disciplinary part of it. So that's what, that's my reservation. How are we going to work that? And I guess we could talk about that as we move forward with this.
Okay, and then
the charter.
it kind of has been brought to my attention, and that story I did read it. So I did, on section 6.05 of the charter, and this is the exact language. It says the governing body shall establish by ordinance the powers and duties of the commission, which shall act in an advisory capacity to the governing body regarding police policies and procedures, complaints regarding police activity that have been received by the city, and such matters as the governing body may determine. So I guess this question would be maybe to Scott. So Scott, if we would work on basically all we have to do is we're giving direction under what the charter, we're just asking for, where the council would give direction to this commission, just outlining that basically, right? What's in there?
Or if there was something specific that the governing body wanted to accomplish. I don't read anywhere in this powers and duties of the Police Advisory Commission that they have any oversight. They don't have any oversight powers over the police department at all. All they are is strictly an advisory position where they advise the governing body regarding whatever the governing body wants to be advised about. But they're just strictly advisory. They don't have any oversight or any authority to make any decisions other than just to report back to the city council.
Okay, so I wonder what it says here, complaints regarding police activity. What would we...
It looks to me like when this was drafted up, this was obviously this charter was done before the 311 and these types of systems where citizens can give direct feedback to the city through different apps. So prior to that, as you guys know, it was just people calling in and making complaints. And it looks like to me that this board was created maybe to filter through some of those, those complaints as they came in. Like maybe this advisory committee was a group that maybe they weren't the first to receive these complaints, but at some point they received the complaints made against the police department, and they reviewed them to make a determination which ones were viable and maybe needed to go get city council attention, or which ones were frivolous and could be kind of disposed of quickly. I'm just trying to think in my mind of what the intention would be of adding that language in there. But to me, it seems like they had some type of an initial look at whatever complaints were filed against the police department. But now with 311 and some of these other things we have set up, we have a much better way of documenting these complaints as they come in through these apps. It's all electronic, so it's all well documented. I don't know that we need to have the Police Advisory Commission be the complaint department for the police. That doesn't seem like it's a good fit now, these days.
Okay. So just to be in compliance with the charter for now, because I know we have the Charter Commission, they're doing what they need to do, but there's still the possibility that they might not, the community might not vote to approve any changes to the next charter. But for us, for currently right now, your recommendation, should we come up with an ordinance so that way we're in compliance at least, and then kind of give the guidance to the commission? Because and the reason why I say that, and it goes beyond even just the police advisory commission. We have so many commissions, which is a good thing, but I think we've kind of haven't given them direction. I've attended a few, I've seen a few, and they're all over the place. And I think within this one, we need to make sure that whatever is basically happening within this commission, it's delegated by the governing body and not by other individuals. Am I correct?
That's exactly correct. None of these boards or committees or commissions have any authority outside of pretty much an advisory capacity to the governing body. So the governing body needs to give them their marching orders. The problem is if they don't have a clear set of direction, then like you said, your fear is going to be realized, and they're going to, most of the time, a board sitting there with no clear directions, going to come up with their own marching orders. And that's not helpful to the council to have everybody off doing their own agendas. So I think it would be important for the governing body at some point to sit down and say, okay, what do we want this police advisory commission to do? And go from there. Now they can advise the governing body regarding police procedures and policies and stuff. But I guess the difficulty you have is if you don't have people who are experienced or knowledgeable in police procedures and policies, you don't want the experience gap. You don't want people sitting on this board who aren't familiar with this, because I think what they need to do is be able to realize that within the committee's review of the police policies and procedures, they have to realize that the police have to comply with certain requirements of them. And so we can't have somebody go in there and just kind of helter-skelter start making decisions regarding policies and procedures.
And
They can, but at the end of the day, they just have to advise the council, and the council can choose whether they want to listen to their advice or not.
And I could understand Chief's, concern with that, and your concern with that. But at the end of the day, when anything is suggested or recommended by any commission in general, I mean, it's going to come to us, and at that point, that's where we're gonna depend upon your legal expertise, and you're going to seek out those experts before we do. I mean, that's the way I would. Before I take any vote on anything, I want to make sure that we have the professionals that do. But just so we get things clear within not only the Police Advisory Commission but other commissions through the committee, that we as a council do have to, I think, give those orders and give direction, because I'm telling you that a lot of different things are happening, and there are things that I know that's some of this council does not even support. But I'll leave it at that. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next order of business, Cassandra.
Mr. Mayor, we have our finance report. We have Jesus Baqueta, our finance director.
Mr. Baqueta, welcome.
Mayor, Council, this is the March 2021 report. We didn't have an opportunity to do it in April, so we're doing it now. The general fund is sitting at 90% revenues and at 63% expenditures, with a surplus of 1.3 million. The enterprise is sitting at 76% revenue, at 62% expenditures, and a surplus of $857,676. The rec is sitting at 69% revenue, 60% expenditures, and a $27,964 surplus. Lodger's tax is sitting at 243% revenue, at 44% expenditures, and a surplus of $197,405. That's the finance report for March 2021.
Mr. Baqueta, I have a question for you.
You're mute. Sorry, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, you're muted.
Can you hear me? No?
Yes.
Yes.
You can hear me now? Okay. So would Bill like to comment on the situation with the budget, or is there anything in this report that you need to make council aware of that either is a red flag or that we need to absolutely know about?
So, Mr. Mayor, just a couple of comments. I think that the report shows that we're in really good financial situation. Revenues are coming in higher than expected. We haven't been spending all the money that was actually appropriated through the budget, and that's why you see those reserves going up across the board, across all of these entities. And that's both good news and bad news, because in the end, we need to spend some money to get some things done. So I've been meeting with different folks about this. I just met with Bill Hendrickson about what are we going to do with lodgers tax. We need to spend some of that money. We're collecting the money from people for in order to do certain things. I think using that as an example, the Lodgers Tax Board approved increasing the tax from 4% to 5% because they wanted to see more stuff being done to promote the city. We need to do that. But we'll have we're going to give a preliminary budget presentation towards the end of the meeting today, and it will be preliminary, but it's going to show that we have we're starting off with good reserves, and we're going to have a budget that is balanced. It's going to change with the final report, but it's going to be a balanced budget. We're well managed financially, and so I don't think that there's any room for concern, except we need to get some more money out the door and get some more things done.
Well, that's good news. Thank you. Thank you for all your work, Mr. Baquera. Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montoya?
I would like to, Mr. Mayor and Council, I would like to give direction to the city manager and to the finance director for our next council meeting. Since Mr. Chuck Grego will be coming before us and giving us a presentation about the 4th of July fiestas, I would like to request that you find out for us exactly how much money is available for this year's fiestas and fireworks, and if we have to do any budget adjustments or so. And also, I would like on next council meeting's agenda is a request for advertising of the fiestas through Lodgers Tax funding. To my understanding, that request might have gone through Lodgers Tax and it was denied. And I think we have the authority to put it on the agenda and approve it ourselves if that's what the desires of Mayor and Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Montoya, we had a discussion today about that very thing. So we're going to make an adjustment to the budget for the fiestas, but also coming before you today is approval of some money for advertising out of Lodgers Tax. And I think we can have a discussion at that point. We didn't even need to wait. We can have a discussion at that point to about making an adjustment to their recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Romero?
Dr. Taylor, you mentioned about the lodgers tax going from 4 to 5%, but just to clarify, that is that the increase was due to the city getting.
I'm sorry. I'll plug in. Go ahead.
Was due to the city basically agreeing to use that additional 1% for infrastructure.
So, Mr. Romero, I think that the increase in this came before me. It came at the recommendation of the lodgers, and the specific purposes of what that money can be used for is determined by state law. And so it says that a certain amount has to go to advertising, certain amount
for infrastructure
can go for construction. And so that was one of the things that we talked about today, looking at going to the Lodgers Tax Board and suggesting some infrastructure improvements to them.
And I mean, since we kind of opened the door to this kind of discussion, is Mayor and Council, I would kindly suggest that we look into infrastructure for a convention center or something of that sort, to where we can maybe match, use some matching funds from the lodgers tax, so that way we can start having events or conferences here to our community. The other thing, Jesus, and I don't know where we're at with this, but in the past year or couple of years, can we get a report, Mayor and Council, that will let us know? I know we have some funding that goes out to nonprofits and other organization, and just to make sure that they're meeting their deliverables on some of this funding that we've given out to them. Can we get an update as to those organizations that have received funding, and if they've met their deliverables, and basically some accountability to that?
Yes, Councilman, we could get you a report on nonprofits.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next order of business.
Mr. Mayor, we have approval of minutes for April 7th and April 14th, 2021.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Montoya. A second, please.
And second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya, Counselor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Next, we have presentations not to exceed 10 to 15 minutes per person. We have Ms. Maria Gilvery, our Utilities Director, reporting on the filter replacement at the water treatment plant.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here today to talk about a project that we have currently in progress. We have 4 filter beds up at the water treatment plant. They are aging, as with everything else at the water treatment plant, and currently our filtering system is at about 50% efficiency. So we are in the process of repairing and replacing and rehabilitating any of the external equipment, actuators for each one of the individual filter beds. Part of the project will be to remove and replace any of the filter bed media or any of the appurtenances, valving that is underneath the media that we can't see. The last time any anthracite was changed was about 20 years ago. So this project will involve removing of everything that's in an individual filter bed. We will clean it out. The bed itself will be repainted. And like I said, anything that's below the filter media, if it can be replaced, it will be replaced. We want to get it back to 100% efficiency for each individual filter bed. These filter beds, like I said, there's 4 of them. So when we take one offline, we'll be operating off of 3 filter beds. That will meet current demand. So with our tanks full and the current demand, we should be able to keep up with the water production that's required. Staff, myself, our engineer, our contractor, we're going through some tabletop exercises and some worst case scenarios so that we're fully prepared for any unplanned events. Some unplanned events could be something like the epoxy takes longer to dry, or there's some material that some piping that was damaged or needs to be replaced that we weren't prepared for. Again, we're going through the original plan so we know what's buried underneath that filter material. So we fully expect to have everything on hand. So if it needs to be replaced, it will be replaced. Something else that can delay the project is it will have to be disinfected once it's installed. That's a 24-hour evolution between the disinfection and then the testing. If it fails the first round of disinfection and the BACT testing, then we'll have to do another 48-hour round. This project, up until the disinfection, will be run on 24 hours. So the contractor will have crews divided up over the 24-hour period to remove the media as promptly as possible, replace the equipment as promptly as possible, and we will also have city staff on hand during the entire evolution. They'll also be in 8 to 10 hour increments. The State of New Mexico Water Quality Board, or the Surface Water Quality Board, and anybody who monitors and assist us with our treatment process, they've been invited to come participate and kind of see what's going on. We expect it, and we're really hoping everything goes well. The worst case scenarios would be if it takes longer and if we have some sort of high water consumption, such as a large water leak. Not really a fire. We don't expect a fire to use a large amount of water. We are currently working with the fire chief so that we can have alternatives during this time frame to minimize water use in case there are fires. If we do have a large consumption of water, we do have 8 days of storage in our water, or 5 days of storage in our water tanks. If we have a portion of water removed from the water tank due to some unanticipated event, our treatment facility can maintain demand, but it wouldn't be able to make up that loss until we get the filter back online, until we're back to 4 filters. And that's due again to the inefficiency of the facility right now. So we are planning for that. Again, we're going through multiple tabletops. We're working through every possible scenario. We expect this evolution to hopefully take 5 days, but we're planning for 7 days. And the budget, we did already put this in the budget, so it is funded for. We're expecting it to be about $100,000 per filter. We're only going to do one filter at a time. So we'll take one filter offline, do the complete rehabilitation on it, restore it, and then we'll operate with that new filter for a little while until we make sure everything is operating as necessary. We'll get any of the lessons learned from taking that one filter offline. Then we'll come back and we'll do the next filter, and we'll do, eventually we'll do all 4 filters, but we don't plan on doing more than one at a time. And if anybody has any questions, actually the project is already kind of in process because we're already trying to work on any of the exterior valving or equipment that is not underneath the media. We will, to Councilor Rodriguez's points earlier, we will put this out on PSAs. We will put it out on the radio. We're actually going to put it in the newsletter as a story. So we do want to get this information out to the public that this is part of normal operations, but it is something that will minimize our production capacity while this evolution is occurring. And if anybody has any questions.
I'll allow questions specifically to
Mayor, I can't hear you.
I said I will allow questions specifically to the filter replacement project at this time.
Got a question, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Montoya?
So Maria, you're replacing how many of the filters?
We will be in this particular evolution, we'll be rehabilitating one filter at a time. So we're going to start with one filter, get it fully back online before we do an evaluation, and then we will then move to the next filter. So eventually all 4 filters will be replaced, rehabilitated.
Within this what, 3-month period?
Each one's going to take 7 days, but there will be a time after the filter is put back online before we will take the other one offline. We want to operate it with it for a while before we want to take a second one offline.
And how long do these filters last?
Well, in this case, like I said, it's been 20 years since the last time we replaced the site, and then the substructure, the piping is older than that. So I'd say 40 to 50 years.
40, 50. Okay, yeah, because I know
for the under drains, the media itself needs to be replaced in 20 years or less.
Yeah, because the mayor and myself were here when they did it the last time, and then his brother, Mr. Trujillo, was also here when we scrubbed those tanks up there and renovated those tanks too to avoid this kind of issues. But okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya.
Thank you, Maria.
Any other questions?
Yes,
Thank you, Maria. Appreciate it. Next order of business, Cassandra.
Mr. Mayor, we have our consent agenda, and that is, we have approximately 6 items on the consent agenda, and I can read them into the record at this time if you'd like.
That would be great. Thank you, Cassandra.
The first one is request approval of resolution number 21-14, applying for and assuring matching funds in the amount of $699,826, and to apply for a match waiver for the Transportation Project Fund. The second item, request approval of resolution number 21-15, applying for and assuring matching funds in the amount of $427,506.36, and to apply for a match waiver for the Transportation Project Fund. Item 3, request approval of resolution number 21-16, applying for and assuring matching funds in the amount of $233,888.40, and to apply for a match waiver for the Transportation Project Fund. Item 4, request approval of resolution number 21-17, applying for and assuring matching funds in the amount of $1,412,648, and to apply for a match waiver for the Transportation Project Fund. Item number 6, request approval of resolution number 21-19, applying for and assuring matching funds the amount of $3,824,686, and to apply for a match waiver for the Transportation Project Fund. And last is item number 6, request approval of resolution number 21-20, applying for and assuring matching funds in the amount of $1,689,934, and to apply for a match waiver for the Transportation Project Fund. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
It's a pleasure of the council.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya.
before we move on this item, just a clarification to the public that are listening in. We have 6 items here that we combined into the consent agenda, so we won't spend all night going through each one of them. But the bottom line is this: there's $8 million that are being matched, and the city of Las Vegas is putting in $400,000 approximately, and this is to have projects due to construction with the New Mexico DOT and so forth to address Silva Road, McRae Street, Dolores Street, South Pacific Street drainage improvement, El Criston Circle, Legion Drive, University Avenue, Hot Springs Boulevard, Valencia Street, Bernalillo Street, North Gonzalez Street, and so forth. Just a little breakdown, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Romero to approve the consent
Second,
agenda.
Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call list, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Moving on to business items, Mr. Mayor, we're going to conduct a public hearing for business items 1 through 6. And all of these business items 1 through 6 have come before council for approval. They approved publication at our last meeting. And so now we want to have the hearing and then adopt the ordinances. So I would recommend that we go into public hearing, everybody be sworn in, discuss all the items in that public hearing, close the public hearing, and then go back to each item and take a vote from the council.
Thank you for your guidance.
With that, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to enter a public hearing for business items 1 through 6.
There's a motion on the floor to enter a public hearing. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Aaron?
All right, who else is going to be speaking? Cassandra, are you going to be speaking? Giving testimony?
Mr. City Attorney, I have not received any public comment for any of these items, so I will not need to speak. So I believe it will just be Maria Gilvery, our Utilities Director, and yourself, and I can swear you in if you want.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero?
we also have Judge Trujillo. I don't know if the council needs to on item number 1, if we need to ask any questions of Judge Trujillo. I know I don't. I don't know if anybody else does.
And I apologize for not recognizing the municipal judge earlier. He's in our audience tonight. Welcome, Mr. Trujillo.
Shame on you, Mr. Mayor.
I know.
You know what? This is the ordinance of the court fines. And I might just have one question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Trujillo, will you be speaking about this? Will you need to be sworn in? Do you think you should be sworn in, Scott, just in case?
We might as well swear him and myself in, and I think Maria is the only other one who's going to be fielding testimony today.
Very well. Go ahead, Cassandra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the 3 of you, those who will be speaking, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I
Aye.
state your name for the record.
Aaron.
Maria Gilvery,
Solemnly swear
you solemnly swear
to tell the truth
Tell the
to
truth.
tell the truth
during my testimony to council tonight.
During my
during my
testimony.
testimony to council tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra.
We'll move on to item number 1. Scott?
Okay, council, this came before you a few months back. The reason why it's back again, I'll just say real quickly, there were some discrepancies regarding the specifics of the fees that are collected by the municipal court. And Judge Trujillo very wisely determined that we needed to add some specificity regarding the collection of those fees and where those fees are going and how much those fees are. So we have done that. I want to be clear that Judge Trujillo did not request an increase in any of the fees. That was something that I believe Councilman Romero started. But anyway, we're here because we specified the fees a little bit more. We also took out this, let me double check and see. Let me pull it up here. Give me 1 second. Just going to pull up the same ordinance that you have in front of you so that we're all on the same page. What the ordinance did was give specificity regarding the fees that are brought in by the municipal court. They have to collect certain fees on behalf of the state, and so we didn't specify. We don't want to specify what those were because the chances are that those specific amounts from the state may change over time. But what we wanted to do is make sure that the fees that are collected on behalf of the city, that we had specific numbers in there in terms of what those amounts were and where those amounts would be going. And so that's the reason for the for this correction of this ordinance at this time. And any questions you guys have are fine.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Jim. Scott, this was my concern the last time that this item came before us was the fees and where they were going to go. And the last time they indicated they were 20 and 20 to public safety and 20 to the courts. But I'm glad that Judge Trujillo came before us today, and I'm glad that we're going to make an adjustment to it and the purpose of specifically for the use of the municipal court building fund. This is something I think Judge Trujillo wanted for 20 years because every time that the priorities come to us for legislature, basically a lot of funding doesn't stretch out that far, and it's split up in between other departments. And I'm glad that the same thing that we did 20 years ago with the fire department, with the towers, cell towers, that money goes to the fire department for equipment and so forth. And it was about time that we finally started this fund, and I hope it doesn't stop here. I think that eventually maybe it can be increased, and also maybe can find other avenues to be able to get a new building for the judge, for the municipal judge's office. I believe they're probably the last ones in the state that have never gotten a building. And it's shame on us, we're responsible for that. So I'm glad we're moving in this direction. Thank you.
Any other comments, concerns? Mr. Trujillo?
Council, I just want to make it clear that I had nothing to do with increasing the court fees. This was an executive branch decision, and I will uphold whatever decision the executive branch deems. And so I just wanted to make that for a part of the record. I know City Attorney Scott Aaron said that I did ask this increase, but as a municipal judge, I have no business asking you to increase fees for the municipal court. I just want to make that clear. Again, the increase in court fees, right now we're collecting $29. $29, $20 goes to support a prisoner. What that means is so that the city can pay for San Miguel County Jail for housing of prisoners, $20 of our fees goes towards paying that bill with the county of San Miguel. $6 goes to the Port Automation Fund. It's a state fund for all municipal courts. So all municipal courts collect this fund in order to supply automation for our courts. And that's anywhere from hardware, software, anything that has to do with court automation. And then there's a $3 fee that we pay to the state for judicial education fee. And all judges, municipal judges in the state collect this fee, and it's put into a fund so that we can have our judicial education, mandatory judicial education annually. Now, the new fees that are being brought before you tonight is a $20 or $15 fee that would go to the police department for law enforcement use. And the $5 is a fee that would be put in place so that City of Las Vegas would have a place to start with a municipal court building. As you know, as all the public knows, this municipal court building is outdated and has gone beyond its call of duty. And so it would be nice to have a new municipal court building. This is a start. Of course, I'd like to see more than $5, but it's a start. And it's good things happening for the city of Las Vegas, and this is one that's going to be going towards municipal court building. And so myself and my staff were very happy about that.
Thank you. Any other testimony, any other comments regarding this one? So we'll move to the next one. Am I correct? Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Romero.
Wanted to make, again, to clarify, I'm the one that brought this ordinance change to the council, just because, we've all made the commitment to make sure, and kind of fitting that this week is Law Appreciation Week, and all of you guys have supported this since the beginning. I appreciate that. It was something that we had all discussed, and I happen to be the one to put my name to it. But it's something that we all support, Mayor and all council. So with that, we tried to make it. We understood that municipal court fees were low and have been low for a long time, and just kind of find different avenues on how we can fund public safety. And with that maybe came the opportunity, because we understand that municipal court has been underfunded for so long, and this was an avenue that we know the $5 isn't much, but it's a start, and eventually maybe can be a match towards later on a grant or something that we can do, and it's a start. I still think we're, based off with this increase, we're still under what magistrate courts and district courts and all those charge. But it's a start, and we'll start somewhere, and we'll move on. And a lot of things that positive things that we're doing, and this is one of them. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Mr. Romero for all his work and spending time and researching this and bringing it to our attention. Thank you, Mr. Romero, for your work.
Mr. Mayor, can I say something, or because I wasn't sworn in, I can't?
No, you cannot.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine.
So do we move to the next one, Cassandra?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if we can have Maria Gilvery, our Utilities Director, go through items 2 through 6. On any
Mayor and Council, the next 5 items are NMFA required ordinances that need to, for 5 projects that we have upcoming that have been discussed with the council in previous council meetings. The total amount is 2.3 million. Of that, 1.725 million is subsidy grant funding. and 25% of it, which is 575,000, is actual loan fund. So this is a 25% payback, 75% of it will be subsidized. And the 5 projects are the water line replacement on Hot Springs, just off of Mills, the SCADA system project, the sedimentation basin vacuum system project, the Hannah Park effluent line extension, and the water treatment plant pump replacement project. Each one of these 5 items, again, we have brought it to the council before, and NMFA does require these ordinances to be adopted to be able to receive the fund.
Thank you, Maria. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, with that, I'd like to exit the public hearing and enter into regular session.
There's a motion on the floor to exit public hearing by Mr. Romero. Second, please. Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank
If
you,
we can now
Cassandra.
go back to item number 1 and then take a vote on each item after that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for adoption of ordinance 21-10.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call us, please.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya, Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero,
I make a motion for adoption of ordinance 21-05.
motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Mike.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero,
I make a motion for adoption of ordinance 21-06.
there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. A second,
Mr.
please.
Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for adoption of ordinance 21-07.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero,
I make a motion for adoption of ordinance 21-08.
there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. A second,
Mr.
please.
Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Please roll call us.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor
Definitely.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mr. Romero.
make a motion for adoption of ordinance 21-09.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving on
Next
to business item number 7, award request for bids number 2021-17 for the North Gonzales Waterline Replacement to Hayes Plumbing and Heating Incorporated. We have Utilities Director Maria Gilbert.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero.
Make a motion to award request for bids 2021-17.
Heard the motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Moving on to item number 8, request approval of resolution number 21-13, acceptance and approval of the fiscal year 2020 audit. We have our finance director, Jesus Baquera, and I believe he has a guest, Jaime.
Yes, Jaime is the auditor from Axiom that actually did the audit.
Welcome, welcome, Mr. Vaquera. Welcome, Jaime. Is Jaime with us?
Jaime, are you there?
There he is.
Oh, there you go.
Hi, Jaime. Welcome.
Hello, Mayor. I apologize. I had to turn on my mic and kind of.
It's okay. Thank you, Jaime. Thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you, Jesus, for and everyone for letting me do the presentation this evening. Just kind of heads up, the audit report is a public document, meaning it's already posted in the state auditor website. What that means is everyone can go there and download the report. So I just want to kind of say that. I'll talk a little bit of kind of the audit objective background, and then I'll go over the financial statement, just kind of some highlights, and then go to the main section of my presentation, which is the audit results and findings. So the objective of our audit is to provide an opinion on the financial statements. So with that said, we have what we call we set a materiality. We don't audit all transactions. It's risk-based approach. So we focus on high-risk areas. We don't do a fraud audit. That's the objective of which is to find some anomalies or things like that. So that's not our main kind of goal, although we got procedures that we do to, especially if people within the city or any red flags that we identify, then we would look into them. But we got some required procedure, but I just want to kind of communicate that that's not our main role. Sometimes there's a disconnect between what the public expectations are and what our objectives are. It's a completely different engagement. I just want to highlight that. In New Mexico, there's a very unique procedure that we do. We call it state auditor compliance. We have clients in different states, from Arizona, Texas, Nevada, and they don't have such. We don't do this kind of things in there. This is very unique in the state of New Mexico, and it's required by the state audit rules. So areas that we look at in addition to the normal audit procedure that we do, we look into your procurement, whether you follow the procurement rules. We look into budgets, make sure that the city, submitted budget, submits, budget adjustment requests, and definitely that make sure that you don't overspend any budget items. We also look into PRA compliance, collateral compliant, P cards, travel per diem. There's probably over 10 areas that we look at. It's kind of detailed test work that we look at. We do what we call sampling. We sample transactions, so it's not like, so it's a random sampling. We have a system that picks it, so we don't picks something for someone, right? Unless, there are some issues, like let's say, like in the past, the state auditor would give us what we call referral letter. Like for example, the previous administration, we would have some procurement issues that we look at. So we have pretty much every year that we look at. But in 2020, there's also something. There's also, again, we also look on compliance, a letter that the state auditor requested us to do, but I'm not gonna go into detail into those, but we didn't find any issues on them. With that, so 2020 is kind of different. We normally spend most of our field work on site. In 2020, I think we spend maybe just half of the time. Normally, we would be there for 4 weeks. In 2020, we were there, I think, 2 weeks, 1 week in the interim and 1 week in final. Of course, with the COVID. Again, we kind of work with everyone with city staff schedule and timelines. But even with the pandemic, I think everything went smoothly, and even with the change of administration and members of management and finance, I think it went smoothly. With that, I would like to go over the financial statements. I would be, as I go, I would be referring to the page number. So if you may open it and let me know if I'm good to go.
You're good to go, Mr. Rumbo.
Thank you, Mayor. Page 14. You can go to page 14. So page 14 and page 15, I just want to highlight a few things there. So page 14 and 15, this is what we call the statement of net position. So basically, this is where you can see all your asset, your liabilities, and your equity. So equities, we called it net position under the Governmental Accounting Standard Board. Just wanna, I guess, highlight, of course, most of your assets are in, cash and cash equivalent. You have for all the governmental and business activities, you have 33.4 million. You have investment of 5 million. But I just wanna kind of highlight those amounts. We confirm them 100% with the banks. So like 100% kind of tested that those balances, make sure that they're in there. So we actually pick up the confirmation in the bank by ourselves rather than waiting it from the mail. Just want to highlight that. There's I think what do you call it? There's had receivables and payable that that's kind of new in 2020. You can see the HUD receivable. It's kind of like right now it's showing us it's a payable to the housing department from the general fund. So right now it's around 3.4, but there's a 150,000 in that you have to pay every year. So I guess I just want to highlight that that's related to the housing homeownership program back in a long time. I was actually the one who did the back when I was with a different firm. I was the one who did the special audit on that homeownership. We know this is something that's coming, but I guess in the past year we disclosed it that there's something there. But this is the first year that the liability was booked, that's showing in the city's financial statement, just because the city entered, you have that formal agreement. In the past, we don't know how much the liability though, but we know how many units or houses are like outside the compliance that were sold meaning it's not sold within the had rules and regulations, so they were invalid, not really invalid sale, but they're violation of the HUD rules. I want to highlight that. Page 15, if you can look into it. I just want to highlight that if you look into the last section of the net position, there's the unrestricted amount of net, under governmental fund. There's a negative 18.2 million of deficit, so it's kind of negative right now, and I just want to explain that. And the reason for that is because of the if you kind of look into the non-current liability section of the page, there's a net pension liability, and then the net OPEB liability that the city has to book. So there's 19 million there. So basically, if you kind of add those back, right, you don't really have that negative unrestricted amount there. And again, this pension and the OPEB, right, these are what we call paper liability. It's not like you have to pay them next year. It's all of this amount were allocation from the PERA. It's right now it's unfunded. I think over 4 billion. I think for the whole state. So they allocate it based on your contribution. So that's the allocation amount. So, but what this means for the city is, and again, it's already happened this year with the legislative changes of the state. Basically, they would increase your contribution. So that's kind of how it would affect you is for the PRA to get funded, and you have to increase your contribution. And the other things that they're doing is they kind of create basically new employees who would have like a step down benefit. So they lower their benefit is what they've been trying to do. So that's kind of two ways to kind of, I guess, get that unfunded to a level that's acceptable, right? Is because I think right now it's below 80%. It's I think close to 80% funded, but I think they're aiming at some point to at least they're at 90 or even 100% funded. But yeah, so they're increasing your contribution and lowering the benefits. So those are what they've been, I think, doing kind of slowly every year. But I just want to highlight that. I want to go to page 69. So page 69, I just want to highlight the note 15, which is the asset retirement obligations. Kind of small amount. Well, not small. Again, it depends. So this is kind of new standard, not in 2020, but it's in 2019. But I just want to highlight. So if there's a GASB number 83 that kind of requires if you have any environmental liabilities or asset that requires closure in the future or some kind of remediation, then you have to accrue the liability. And so this is for the wastewater treatment plant, that if at the future, if you need to either close or kind of rehabilitate it, this is the liability that it's 252,000 right now that kind of recorded, but that's estimate is based from the 2019. We would update that I think we would ask for an update every 3 years. So we asked a third-party engineers who give us that estimate. So that's kind of how we get that. And of course, next page is page 70. Just want to highlight again, we talk note 20, we talk about the HUD repayment. agreement that I kind of mentioned, right? So you have to pay them through 2046. I think it's 150,000 a year. Then that's the minimum, right? Meaning if the city have some surplus, then you can, I guess, double that or increase that, so you can pay it off earlier than. But I'm just kind of highlighting that. That's a new disclosure this year. Note 21 is a required disclosure. It's of course related to the pandemic. We basically just kind of say, hey, we have the pandemic. It has impact on the city, but as far as, well, technically we if we know what the impact is, right, we would disclose it. But it's kind of something hard to estimate what would be the impact for the city in 2020 or for 2021. So what we're kind of saying is, we got the pandemic, and it, I guess may or may have a significant impact to the city. So that is that for disclosure. But that's something new in 2020 as well. I just want to go to page 119, please.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question real quick?
Go ahead.
Is it Jaime or Jamie?
It's Jaime, Councilor Romero. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Jaime. I just had a couple questions. I don't know if you're going to touch upon these, but as far as our internal controls pertaining to fraud, did you, by chance, I know I understand the way an audit works, but did you touch upon any of that?
So Councilor Romero, so basically with fraud, so what we normally do is, so first thing we do is we make inquiries to within the city. So with management, we talk, and then different people, like for example, HR, we talk to people from HR too, and then utilities, kind of identify basically if they're aware of anything unusual or any fraud, and also, as I said, the state auditor provided us with some issues that not the city employee referred it to us. Well, it's actually both. Some city employees and some citizens of the city that called their hotline. So we look into those. There are probably like 3 or 4 areas that we look at. There's one for utility that I think that we look at. There's, I think, one for the Fiesta, for the ladders tax, how the city used that one. We have some, I guess, some people that raise issue into that. We look into those. Also, we as part of, we do like tests of your journal entries, which normally kind of the way where if you're trying to hide something, journal entry is the one where you try to kind of look at. And then in all our testing of internal controls and single audit, we basically incorporated some fraud control to look at, make sure that, invoices are, legitimate. It's not just checking the box for us. We kind of like really look into expenses, make sure that they make sense, that there's economic substance, and we try to understand what the expenses are for, or whether they're necessary and reasonable. So,
did you have a comment, Mr. Romero, regarding fraud?
No. I just wanted to make sure that that was touched upon, because I know. Okay. And then I'm going back that make sure that those issues that if we need to address them or change our internal policies, then we need to address that. And I just wanted to make sure. Of course, an audit only touches upon a small portion of it, and let's say if there was concerns within, you brought up a few of them in a department. If this council had been given a disclosure statement or any other employees, and we could have said to get a more intensive audit, it wouldn't be, it would be a separate contract, right?
Yes, Mr. Romero, it's gonna be, if you guys want us to look into something that's not, basically it's additional to what we do as an audit, then it's a separate contract. Now, the work that we did last year, we probably spent 2 days. We didn't ask for more money though, because it's just 2 days.
Okay.
But it's still 16 hours. But if you're kind of looking to where we have to spend more than 3 days to a week, then I would come back to the city and say, hey, we need to amend the contract or have another contract to do this. But yes, we
Okay.
would.
And then another concern that, and this is in the past, but of course, as we move through audits, we want to make sure we fix everything. Another thing that we had gotten was a special audit that hit upon HR. Was anything addressed on this audit?
So, Councilor, are you talking about the
Special audit.
previous the previous special audit in the
Yes.
past?
So what I'm saying is we had issues back then. Have we addressed those issues with this new administration, or are we still have some needs? Is kind of what I'm asking, or is that?
So what we did on the special audit, what we did is we reported back to the state auditor. So we went one by one on all the issues, and a lot of those issues are non-audit related. Basically, we're passing on. So the kind of for us is we identify areas in that special audit that would concern us. Because if we're gonna go one by one, as I said, then we're probably gonna charge you more money if we're gonna do that. But we went back and kind of identify what matters to us, and we reported back to the state auditor. We created a letter, and we responded to each point to kind of say, oh, this is doesn't concern our audit, or this is significant, this is what we did. Part of our walkthroughs on payroll and HR, we kind of covered most of them.
Okay, all right. Well, that would be a separate thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So trying to move on, Mr. Rumbawa, if there's anything that you want to point out or that we should know.
I'm kind of getting close, Mayor.
Okay,
I just want to. So, page 119. So, page 119, this is the schedule of the expenditure of federal awards. So, these are all the federal money that the city spent in 2020. So, you spent 1.5 million in 2020, but I just want to highlight this. So every time you spend over 750,000 in federal funding, and then you're required to have a single audit. And during the year, we audited the public and Indian housing. Again, it's a risk-based approach. We try to it's not something that we just pick, hey, we're going to audit this. We follow a compliance supplement issued by the Fed. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
And then page 121. So we're getting there.
Mr. Romero?
Just if we can, Mr. Mayor, to kind of, I know we still have some other items, and I know he answered my questions, or at least addressed the concerns that I had. But if any other council members would have that, any other questions, they could ask those directly, we could touch upon those points.
Yeah. Does anybody have any comments regarding the audit? Any concerns that you want to bring up? No? Mr. Montoya, any questions about the audit?
No, I do have a question though, but it's not specifically about the audit. No.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else that you need to point out, Mr. Rumbawa?
Yes, Mayor. I'm going through to the most important one.
Okay. If you could just maybe speed it up. Thank you.
I will. So page 121. So this is this summary. So if you go to the audit report, this is the most important kind of page. So here, it's like the summary. You can see the audit opinion that we issued, which is unmodified, or simply put, it's the highest. It's a clean opinion. It's the highest form of opinion you can get. As far as the internal controls, we did not have any material weakness. However, we have a significant deficiency, which I'm going to cover in a bit. On the federal award side, in the single audit, we didn't have any issue at all. So, going to page 122, please.
Go ahead.
So page 122 is this finding. We raised this back in 2019. So we look into your IT internal controls. So we have 4 issues that we identified. The first one is lack of vulnerability assessment or penetration tests on network and application that has never been done like in the past that I can remember, maybe past 10 years or maybe more than that. Or so that's the first. As far as IT policies and procedure, they're still in development. For instance, information classification policy and incident response plans are not in place yet. And again, policies and all these kind of things are very important with all the, hacking incident that has been going on, or even, there are just kind of too much going on right now on that space. The third one that we have is the IT disaster recovery plan is still in draft form and not finalized. I know Jesus kind of provided some document for us to look at for some DR site, I guess, with the county. That's correct, Jesus, right? Is it for the county?
Yes, it's a county OEM plan.
Okay. So again, we just by looking on the document, I cannot, when we do our audit again for 2021, we would go one by one and kind of make sure that they are resolved. And so part of, let's say for that disaster recovery, right, we're going to make sure that is that sufficient and covers everything that you need. So until we review that and have interview with your IT personnel, we're not going to conclude whether you address that or not. And the last finding we have on the IT control is there's no fire suppression system in place for both server rooms. Again, I don't know, it may be a budget constraint. I don't know. I guess fire suppression can be expensive, I guess, but the cost is going down. But I just want to raise that issue that if you have a fire, then there's nothing there that's it in place. I want to go to page 123 for the second findings. So the first finding that we have, and then this second one, we call it other matters. So they are on the finding here hierarchy, right? So they're like on the third one. So they're like basically other matters, right? So they're not significant is how we classify them. So I just want to highlight that. On this second findings we have is regarding the PRA and RHCA form. So the contribution under the state law, you have 15 days to remit it from the time you paid it up, and there's 13 out of 26, so half of all the payment that the city made, they were late by more than 5 business days. Again, this is a compliance requirement by the state auditor that we need to look at. And it's, as I said, if you can see on the title, it's other non-compliance. The last finding we have, and this is a significant deficiency on the internal control. It's on the second. As I mentioned, you don't have a material weakness, which is kind of good, right? But you have a significant deficiency. Now, classification of significant deficiency is anything that, I guess, something that we need to bring attention to the governance, which is the city council. And I think this is kind of falls under that classification. so what happened into this is there's a loan from NMFA. It's a 219,000 that were not recorded in the city's book. So how did we find that there's 219,000? As I mentioned, cash and all the debt, we confirm them. So we confirm all balances with NMFA, and then there's that 219,000, and then it's not in the book. We kind of asked, I think it may have been some documentation issue, or I don't know, maybe the COVID can have to do with it, but that's kind of the issue that we have was, there's that loan that wasn't reflected on your financial statement. That's pretty much what I have. We didn't have any findings on the single audit, the federal awards that we tested. Again, it's a very detailed test work. We didn't have any issue into those. I would say, I mean, overall, this is still it's a very good audit. I mean, 3 findings, 2 minor. I think it's still very clean.
Thank you, Mr. Rumbaua. Any other questions regarding the go ahead, Mr. Montoya.
It's not really pertaining to the budget, but I did have a question. You're in tune with what's going on at the legislature during the session and the laws that are being changed to a certain point.
Yes, Mr.
Let me ask you a question. Do you have any insight as to how the state is going to divide the incoming funding from the sales of marijuana to the municipalities, or what percentage is going to be coming down?
That's something, Mr. Montoya, that's something that we don't really have. We kind of look into the laws, I mean, all the changes, but at this point, I don't have any inside information. Again, that may be kind of too early at this point to know. But
Thank you, Mr. Rumbaua.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dr. Rodriguez.
Now, Jaime, when you asked him about this 219,000 that was not recorded, what was the answer?
I
recorded.
I think
Is that an answer to go to Bill or Jesus?
Dr. Rodriguez, I think as I said, it has to do with some paperwork that were not, maybe, I don't know if it's the city or maybe the NMFA, they didn't, I guess, provide the final document to the city. So I think it's more of kind of oversight on, I'm not going to say which one, but, and again, the COVID probably the main cause of that. And again, yeah.
Thank
But
you,
it's
Mr.
still we
Rumbaua.
have to fix it, right? Or you just let it go?
It's it's already been fixed.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been fixed. So we don't expect that to see that this year again. That should be clean. So.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Rumbaua. We appreciate all your work.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Romero.
I got a couple motions. The first one, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution 21-13.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you,
And
Cassandra.
Thank you,
Mr. Romero.
And then I guess it would be a motion. I just want to give, maybe we could agree here that we give direction to city manager and Jesus that we have an action plan within maybe 3 months or 6 months on an update on how some of these items are going to be fixed.
I'm going to ask you guys if you could mute the councilman and mayor. They're not muting, so when you talk to us, it's all jumbled. People aren't muting. Okay, thank you. Can you say that again, Councilman Romero?
Give me 1 second. So I just wanted to say if we could, give give direction to city manager and Jesus that we have an action plan within like 3 months or 6 months that, these findings, what they're doing to address these findings to ensure that next audit that they're taking care of.
Bill, did you have a comment? You're muted, Bill. You're muted, Bill. I'm muted.
You're muted, Bill. I'm sorry, you're muted.
So sorry about that. So Councilor Romero, just to let you know, Jesus and I have met on this, and all the directors met on it. We accept every recommendation that the auditors made. We hope to have all of them addressed before the end of the fiscal year, or at least make a good dent on it. So in the next couple of months, almost all of these things should be addressed.
Just so we could have an update.
We'll do that. We'll give you an update.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Next order of business, Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor, item number 9, request approval of resolution number 21-18, a resolution to make a budget adjustment for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. We have our Finance Director, Jesus Baquero.
Go ahead, Jesus.
Mayor, Council, this resolution is to do a bar to the FY21 budget. All these monies are state funding that we're gonna get. Fund 214, the street co-op, will increase by $532,787. Fund 282, the senior center, will increase by $35,000. Fund 206, the EMS fund, will increase by $20,000.
Thank you. Any questions? Did this go through the Finance Committee?
Yes, it did, Mayor.
Thank you. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to consider the resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion. Am I muted or not? No.
There's motion by Mr. Montoya. A second, please.
To approve item number 21, resolution 21-18.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Montoya. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please, Cassandra.
Counselor Rodriguez? You're muted.
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Just
give him 1 second.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we have a motion by Counselor Montoya and a second by Counselor Ulibarri Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baquero, for all your hard work. Next order of business, please.
Item number 10, request approval of the new positions to include 1 full-time Parks Field Supervisor, 1 full-time Pool Supervisor, 1 part-time Public Information Officer, 1 full-time Temporary Administrative Aide, 1 full-time Accountant, 1 full-time IT Technician, and 1 full-time Animal Control Supervisor. We have City Manager Dr. Taylor.
Does anybody have any questions regarding this?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Elaine.
I would like to know why can't we consider a public information officer full time? This is one of the positions that we have constantly talked about. We constantly get complaints about information getting out. Can we consider moving that to a full-time position and not just a part-time position?
So Councilor Rodriguez, we believe that we can do this with a part-time position. And so in the interest of budget, and we know that, I sit in this office every day. I think that the amount of work that's involved can be completed with the part-time position. And we can always address it later if we find out that that's not adequate. But I'd like to at least start off with part-time, and then we can address it and see if we're getting all the work done that we need to get done.
And second question, so Who, the position that was doing this previously, was that a part-time or a full-time position?
This position hasn't been filled since I've been here. So in the past, we have had a full-time PIO.
Mr. Montoya?
I'd like to have the city manager, if you don't mind, go through each item and why the request is being asked for.
Mr. Taylor, go ahead, sir.
Also, can you include the salaries, starting pay?
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'd be glad to do that, Councilor. The Parks Field Supervisor, we currently have a Parks Field staff. We don't have anybody who acts as a supervisor, so this is a position that will be filled internally. The fiscal impact on it is going to be, on a full year basis, is going to be about $1,600. So it's just going to be an increase in pay. We will not be replacing the person that is likely to take this. We'll do it as an internal transfer. The pool supervisor, we've had requests, and we're all interested in getting the rec center open as much as possible, and a lot of people are very interested in getting the pool open. And in order to do that, we have to have lifeguards, and we have to have a supervisor who is able to train the lifeguards. And so that's something that we're going to look at. And I don't remember the amount of the position, the cost of the position, but Stephen Aragon's here. Stephen, can you say something about that?
Yes, that position was going to start at $13 an hour.
And field supervisor, park supervisor?
Currently it would be 19 if we internally promote. So it'd be an increase for an individual of 70 cents an hour.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, the public information officer.
So the public information officer will be a part-time position. As budgeted, I think we have it budgeted at around $25,000.
Okay.
The admin aide, this is a position that is currently being paid for 100% by Help New Mexico, and but that's only for a 5-week period. We want to transition that to a full-time position for a specific period of time. Is to help Chuck Riego with all the work that's related to special events. The Help New Mexico will pay 75% of the cost. We'll pay 25%, and it is at I don't remember exactly what it is, but it is right now at the minimum, and will probably increase by a little bit when we go to full time. But again, 75% of it will be paid for outside of the city's budget. The accountant position, as you recall, we have our grants are administered at community development. We want to transfer that position to an accountant that would work in the finance section. That's the way it's done in most places. So you usually have people who look at the grants coming in and coming out, and so a lot of this is basically accounting work. And so we just want to put it in finance because it ends up making things a lot easier, a lot administratively, a lot more efficient by having it in finance. The IT technician, we know that we have our IT has a lot on their plate. In fact, it was one of the things that was in the audit that didn't get discussed they noted that we were understaffed in the IT section, and that was one of the reasons why we had some of that IT finding. So we want to increase, and we have the funding for it. I don't know exactly what an IT person makes, but it'll probably be one of the more expensive ones, but it's still probably on the order of $35,000 to $40,000. And these are not easy people to find, so it might be a little bit more than that. And the animal control supervisor is we're asking for that. We have 2 animal control officers. We don't have a supervisor. They are supervised by the deputy chief of police. The deputy chief of police has a lot on his plate. This is a supervisor that we haven't determined the exact amount, but we're looking at something on the order of $15 an hour. The people who are in the field are getting about $13 an hour. So we'll determine the exact amount for the study, but it's not going to be much more than $15 an hour. And
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
we have a lot of work for this person to do.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Romero?
Go ahead, Councilor Rodriguez. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Elaine.
Dr. Taylor, these positions will be advertised internally and externally, correct?
That's correct. I mean, and you know, some of them we will advertise internally and see if there's anybody qualified following the HR rules and they meet the requirements for the position, and they'll be interviewed that way. Others will be open to the public and anybody.
Thank you. Mr. Romero?
Okay. Stephen, I had a question. You mentioned that it was $19 an hour, but I don't believe that a regular parks employee makes, what's 18 something? Because you said it's like a 70-cent increase.
There's been some individuals that prior to me starting that have been transferred into the department that are making significant amounts of money for a park maintenance worker one, actually more than this individual here or this pay right here. It's something that kind of handcuffs us a little bit in expanding and having more staff, but it is an inherited salary already.
Inherited
as far as this individual was transferred into the division from another the two I'm talking about from other departments prior to me starting, and so the increase for this individual is just to make it somewhat comparable to the individuals that he's going to be supervising.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I still
Go
have
ahead.
quite a few. So on that, then that kind of raises the concern that Councilor Rodriguez brought, is that we're going to open it up internally, but it sounds like that individual already has been pre-selected. So we got to make sure that, you know, and the reason why I brought up HR earlier, give me 1 second. Okay, is that better? Okay. So the reason why we have had HR problems in the past is that we're not following the HR rules to where we're opening it up internally and that. So we got to be very careful that we got to open it up before we say that it's to a certain individual. The pool supervisor, is it a separate position, or is it something that we're already have also? Is that already, because I could have sworn that we already had that position in the books before.
It has been in the books in the past. It's just been unfunded. Just asking for authorization to fund it so that we can start getting the pool open sooner than next fiscal year.
Okay. And then the other thing, Dr. Taylor, maybe, you know, this is a suggestion that will help us for 6 months, is that in talking with, and I know the mayor and I have been in contact with HELP, and, you know, with that administrative aid, you know, they have this one position right now, they're paying for 5 weeks, but with all these positions that we're doing right now, you know, if we open it up and they apply and we could use HELP to fund the 75% for some of these positions, I think that would be an idea that would help us out financially for 6 months if we could look at that resource if possible. Because I know in speaking with Roger Gonzalez, he was saying that they have many millions of dollars available through their funding and they want to apply for another grant, and it's another couple $1 million, but in order they need to show that they're using this money here in San Miguel County. So I know the resources there, and we better take advantage of it if we can. So that's, you know, just a comment on that. But going back to the PIO officer, so right now, I agree with Councilor Rodriguez, where I think this has to be a full-time position, and I would suggest that we do not have it a part-time and it be a full-time. And I know, Mayor, you just mentioned now about doing an RFP, or that was just kind of came out wronger?
Well, I don't know. It's not RFP, it's just
Oh, okay.
job announcement.
Okay. So I would suggest that we do, we open it up full-time, and I know situations with PD, I truly believe that, you know, we could do it, you know, the work is there. I guarantee you the work is there. And my suggestion would be we do it full-time. And I would only agree to that if it's full-time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager, are these by any chance in priority, listed in priority?
No, these were listed. There was no
Okay.
prioritization here.
Okay. Now, how many employees do we have in our streets department?
I don't know that right offhand, but I think
Is Daniel or Maria there?
There's 6 and a supervisor.
6 and a supervisor. And could you use another man there or another woman?
Yes, a couple more would be nice.
Thank you. Okay, this is my point. You know, there's a need everywhere. But is the budget available on this positions that you're requesting, or there would have to be a budget adjustments for next year?
So, Mr. Montoya, the budget is available. I think that in regards to police, and this gets back to Councilor Romero's comment, we are working with Help New Mexico. We want to have a summer youth program. We're going to get us a lot of help to the streets and to utilities and other parts of the city, Parks and Rec. So we're looking at getting a lot of people there. And, you know, I think next year's budget, we can look at we could look to adding to the workforce in streets.
Okay, and I'm in agreement with a couple of councilors here that we need a full-time PIO. I don't know why, but I don't really like part-time people or positions, should I say, not people. Positions, because sometimes you don't know where they're at, whether they're here or there, or where they're at, and the accountability starts to weigh off. I think we have enough workload. We got to promote mayor and council, the manager, all directors, all departments. We got to let people know what we're doing. This last year, we had tons of projects that nobody knew about that we did as a team. So I think there's enough workload for a person full time in that position. Now, if the individual or that you guys have in mind or anything like that don't want to do something like that, well, you know, that's the way I feel about that one. I would also ask you to include one individual for the streets department, because that's number one concern of the citizens is the potholes in our city. And I see that department is shorthanded on staff, and I think that we should add somebody to that department. The field supervisor positions and those, I agree with Councilman Romero that they got to be advertised and legit, and may the best person take the position upon themselves there. Again, I think I'm a little bit concerned about the budget wise, because we're going to be in 1 year's time period that we hired the city manager, our directors, and some of them might be, how do I say this, might be up for a raise. We hired them at a low salary, and I think some might be, we might consider picking them up a little bit on their salaries for the work that they've done, and rightfully so after a year's period of time that they've been working with us. So that is going to have to be taken into consideration, Mr. City Manager, with all this in mind.
So, Councilor Montoya, I mean, I think that I've looked at those things as well, and I think that our budget can accommodate.
Wait, hold on, Mr. Taylor.
We are going to have to ask the attorney for his opinion. We cannot change the agenda at this time. Right now, the agenda says a part-time. So we'll have to bring that back, I'm assuming. And then there's not another position for streets on this agenda. So we'll have to bring those two back at a later date.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And at that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. I mean, the positions minus the part-time public information officer, and with regards to Mr. Montoya's comments, the people for the streets department will not be voted on tonight.
And I would like to add to that that we'll table it.
Go ahead, Elaine.
I'd like to add that we will table the FIO and the One Street Department for next week's meeting.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
so I make a motion to approve the positions listed on the agenda with the exception of the PIO.
Thank you.
With the suggestion that any of these positions, if we could use, go through Help New Mexico to help fund them for 6 months, I think it would be very beneficial. That's my motion.
Thank you. Second, please. Second, please. Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll callers, please.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr., Counselor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Moving on.
Go ahead.
Moving on to business item 11, discussion and direction on whether to continue to hold council meetings virtually or to return to exclusively in-person meetings. And then the second part of that is also discussion and direction for public meetings of city boards, commissions, and committees. And we listed, for example, do these committees have the option to hold their meetings virtually or exclusively return to in-person meetings? Do BCCs that are subject to Open Meetings Act need to stream their meetings on YouTube and such? So that would be the second part of that item. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just entertain a discussion. I'd like for this to be as brief as possible. My suggestion is that we do go to in-person meetings for the city council, the boards and commission as well. And I also think that it's important that the meetings be streamed with the boards and commissions via YouTube for public access, as well as the city council meetings. That's just my recommendation. I'll open the floor for discussion. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
When we're opening these meetings, there was 60% of New Mexicans will be vaccinated by June. Are we going to open them starting in June, so that would affect our June meetings? Is that correct?
That's the discussion we're having, but yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussions? Mr. Romero?
As far as the in-person meetings exclusively,
Counselor Romero, you're muted.
As far as the in-person meetings, I totally, I think we're, I know we've probably been criticized here, for not wearing masks. I know that under the CDC guidelines, we're allowed, if we've all been vaccinated, and within this room, we've all been vaccinated, so we're good. So as far as in-person meetings, I'm good with that. And I also believe that the boards and commissions should be in person. Like I've mentioned earlier, I've been in some meetings where some of the board members are on the road and traveling, and it's kind of like I don't know if their attention is 100% towards what's happening in those meetings. So I think that we're good enough to all attend in person. The other part is, as far as the recordings, I agree with you, Mayor. I think we need to continue, to be transparent and afford the opportunity for those that cannot be here, that they're able to watch it and also hold us in doing what we're supposed to when we need to. So that would be my suggestion on that too.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, you're muted.
Sorry. Anybody else? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a few comments? I
Yes.
just need clarification, if I may. So for the in-person meetings, in order for everyone to be on YouTube, they would have to be the in-person at the chambers, and not all of them are having their meetings there. So there's a bit of a conflict there because we have so many of these meetings that sometimes they meet more or less at the same time. And there's no way to have them on YouTube, via stream YouTube, if they're in another place, like let's say the utilities department. And the other question I had is about half of our committees and boards are subject to OMA, the other half are not. So that was my other question. The ones that are not subject to OMA, do they have to be on YouTube and meet all the specifications of the ones that are subject to OMA, like have a notice, have an agenda? Those are the questions that I have.
I would suppose not, but for transparency, I would like to see if we could maybe arrange a schedule so that these boards and commissions have time to meet here. So maybe it's just a little rearranging of schedules. And if this is the only place that has capability to air on YouTube, I think we need to look at other resources. But for now, I would think that there would be enough scheduling consideration so that they would be able to meet in the chambers.
Okay,
Mr.
and that
Romero,
will
go ahead.
Subject to OMA, correct? Only
Just the meeting subject to OMA
on YouTube. Okay.
on YouTube. Mr. Romero, did you have a comment?
I think Councilor Montoya did, or no?
I'll comment. I've been sitting here since day one, so I'll continue to be sitting here at this until 3 years from now.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know, Dr. Taylor, and I don't know if Kenny is on or he's.
Is Kenny here from IT?
Yes, I'm on.
So Kenny, I know we're all here and we had, we talked about. Okay, we're getting that feedback, so I'm gonna go ahead and mute you guys. If you're wondering who's muting you, it's because I'm getting a lot of feedback. Okay, so my question is, Kenny, is there a way to put one mic to one computer, even though we could all watch it here and maybe have sound, because we do get that feedback, and I totally love the concept that we're doing here on Google Meet, because we could see everybody is very clear, because the camera system, and we brought this up when COVID started, is that we needed to update the camera system. What's going to be the best solution that we could move forward to make sure that the quality of the YouTube video, or if we do consider, not if we do, we're going to, how soon can we get a camera system up, or continue with our laptops here with the cameras on us with one mic? Because we do now that all of us are here, we have to mute each other. If not, we get that feedback. What is going to be the easiest way, as far as IT wise, to address those issues, so that way we make it more clear to the viewing public? What do we have to do, and how fast can we get it done?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. As a matter of fact, we just received a quote for redoing the chambers, and the only thing is, I'm not exactly sure how long the turnaround time would be to actually do the work. I know that the vendor was saying that there is some issues with actually getting equipment. They tried the equipment that they quoted us out was available at the time that they quoted at, but they're not guaranteeing that it'll still be available because of all of the shortage of electronics that there is.
So as far as so if it takes a while, so going to the way we're doing it now, is there a way to use one computer and have one mic that'll pick us all up? And I think if we use the mic, like the mayor's right now, he could probably, and we'll try this out real quick.
Nobody can. I can't.
Yeah, you can't hear it.
Oh, no.
Okay, so I guess it's not going to work. I guess I'm just saying, there's one way that we could get one mic for all of us, because even with our headsets on, we kind of sometimes do get the feedback.
The way you would do that is get an external mic, a bigger mic, and then centrally locate it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was suggesting.
So the other thing we could do is, we could always go back to using the old equipment that we had. The picture quality is kind of poor, but the actual audio and everything else is pretty good.
Okay.
I have
Well,
no
that would be
going back,
until we would actually get the chamber redone.
So just changing that one camera to an updated camera wouldn't fit? It's not a compatible camera. That's a better one?
No, because all the other equipment that's driving it is all out of date. The equipment that was put in there, we were figuring was put the PA. Well, the audio equipment was probably from the 80s, and the video equipment and stuff was probably put in early 90s. So it does a lot of it doesn't have even HDMI quality or even the 4K or anything like that. So that's kind of why the picture quality is so poor.
Okay. Can you, because I think they're called an ambient microphone, maybe a high, we have some time to play with it, I guess, before, everything comes in, but maybe check into that. It's called an ambient microphone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, you're on mute again, I guess.
Mr. Montoya?
Yeah, thank you. The question going back to the commissions, boards, and committees, I'm going to recommend that Mayor give direction to Loretta Abreu Martin and contact all this and the clerk and contact all this chairmans and vice chairmans and have them attend an OMA meeting of the ones that are required to have meetings virtually or in person, because it's important that everybody's in the same page. We're getting slammed back and forth because some chairmen say they don't want training or they don't need training, and yet we're not abiding by the OMA.
Thank you. We'll follow up.
Okay.
We'll follow up.
So some of them don't know that they can't go into executive session and so forth. So I encourage the city manager to make sure that staff reports any of this stuff that's going on back to him so that we can address it at our level. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council for item number 11?
Mr. Mayor, we'll go one by one. So I make a motion to hold. No. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to return to exclusively in-person meetings. The first one.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Okay.
Counselor, is that effective June 1st?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
the next meeting?
June 1st is fine.
What about the next meeting? We have a big agenda.
Next meeting? I amend my motion to the next meeting.
Thank you.
And could you advertise the capacity of the chamber proceeding for the public?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we will put a notice out.
Thank you.
And that's plenty of notification to the public about our going back to
Yes, that will meet the requirement.
Okay, thank you. I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
The next one, I make a motion that boards and commissions hold their meetings exclusively in person. Then I'll have a third motion for something else.
There's a motion on the floor. Second, please.
Councilor Romero, is that also effective? Will that one be June 1st?
Yes.
There's a motion on the floor. Second, please.
Question. Oh, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'll wait till. Okay. My question is to city attorney. Are we making a motion here that is going to go against the charter or any bylaws that we have, or any bylaws that the commissions or committees have? Are we inventing a new wheel here?
By requiring them to meet in person?
Yes, because some committees are and some boards and commissions aren't. So
No, the bylaws aren't specific regarding that they have to meet online or not meet online. It's the council is the one who the city council is the one who initially said, we're going to go to all online YouTube remote meeting, and it was because of COVID. So all you're basically doing now is going back to the way it was prior. And it sounds like to me that we're going to have the motion sounds to me like as of June 1, all boards, committees, and commissions would return to in-person meetings. That's what I thought I heard.
Yes.
okay, but there's nothing that says, like the clerk, every year we pass a resolution that certain boards, commissions, or committees have to have a meeting either quarterly or monthly, and is there anything that conflicts with this in-person meetings? Okay.
This motion here doesn't lay out any obligations for when they meet or where they meet. It's just that they have to meet in person.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll
There's a
second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Ulibarri Jr.,
Yes.
Councilor Montoya,
Yes.
Councilor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
The next motion, Mayor, I make a motion that all boards and commissions need to stream meetings on YouTube.
Councilor,
Are these all or just the ones that are subject to OMA?
That's not going to work.
Why? Not all commissions or committees are subject to OMA?
I would say all.
All?
All. I mean, and I'll use the youth commission or marketing committee, or even the business committee that I sit in. I think it's very important that if these committees are put together to get input, yes, we have the appointed commissioners or board members, but there's going to be those individuals that maybe might want to give input into some of these committees that might be very input that might, be important to decision making that these boards and commissions are making.
Okay,
So
Councilman, my only request is clarification from the clerk. Some committees, we have probably the most ever, 90 of them. How are they going to schedule and arrange the place for that to happen and the technology?
Could you please clarify that, Councilman Montoya? We have 90 committees.
My question to the clerk is, since we have like 80 or 90 boards, commissions, and committees, how are the committees all going to be scheduled into the chambers or to wherever they're having it and still have accessibility to YouTube or technology to do that?
Councilor, so they'll all have to be scheduled in the chambers, for one. So we're going to have to do some scheduling if we want them all to be on YouTube. We're going to have to make some rearrangements there so that they can all be streamed on YouTube.
Now, those are 90 committees commissions, boards, and they all take different times, an hour, half an hour, 3 hours. How are we going to do that?
Develop a calendar,
Develop a what?
a calendar.
But there's not 90. There's not
First
90
come,
commissions.
first come, first serve?
No,
No? Oh,
just set up a calendar when they're going to meet.
I don't think there's 90.
I think we've got about 20 or so, 20, maybe another couple.
Yeah, because I don't think we have 90 committees.
And half of them are,
How many?
we've got about 20. Is that correct, Scott? If I recall correctly, is there about 20?
I don't remember off the top of my head how many that we have. I'd have to check tomorrow when Ms. Abreu gets to the office.
And who would be in charge of scheduling, Loretta or yourself?
It's a
Who's sched-
combination. We would work together to get that on the calendar. And then, of course, we would bring that to the council in a resolution that's going to take effect July 1st for the new fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a motion on the floor.
Just one quick comment, even if it's 20, this is a question to Cassandra. Can we, we're going to start on June 1st. Will we have time to notify everybody and get that calendar in place by June 1st?
I think to have them on YouTube, probably not. That might take a little bit longer if we have to schedule them all in the chambers and rearrange their scheduled times, dates, and all of that. So maybe July 1st.
We could do July.
And the other issue that I might see coming is this, like utilities, they have their meetings at the utility building on 12th Street. There you're taking away staff from their work. The police department, the advisory committee, they have theirs at the police station. So there's no accessibility there to YouTube and all this. Other organizations, the larger stacks, I don't know where they have their meetings. And so I don't know how we're kind of disrupting the places and times and everything that they're having already established. So good luck on trying to accommodate everybody here.
And some only meet quarterly.
Yeah. So.
And I think that accountability outweighs disrupting people's schedules here and there and their comfortability.
Mr. Mayor, we have a motion on the floor, and it's a vote right now. So if you guys, there's a motion.
There's a motion on the floor. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Elaine.
Can we read the motion,
Roll
please?
call, please.
Can you read the motion, please?
Mr. Mayor, councilors, the motion
Hold
was,
on. Mr. Montoya would like the motion to be read. Mr. Romero?
The motion is that all boards and commissions need to stream their meetings on YouTube.
Thank you.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Roll call, please.
Councilor Montoya,
No.
Councilor Romero,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
And Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, this doesn't change that those committees that don't have to follow OMA, they don't have to. All it is to stream those meetings so the public could.
They don't have to stream those?
No, they do.
Oh,
I'm just saying those that don't.
Well, the motion read all of them.
Yeah. But I'm just making a clarification that those boards and commissions that don't are subject to OMA, that doesn't change notices or anything. This is just that the boards and commissions will be streamed on YouTube.
Right. That's correct.
I wish that would have been clarified before my vote, but that's fine. Thank you.
Very well, thank you. The next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, item number 12, request approval of MOUs with the La Plaza Little League and La Plaza in Las Vegas Little League.
Thank you. Go ahead, Stephen.
Mayor and Council, just wanted to get in place the Little Leagues now that things have been opened up by the governor to have youth sports events. Both local Little Leagues want to get their season started. La Plaza Little League would like to start on Monday, May 17th, and Las Vegas Little League on June 2nd.
Have we always had an MOU with these groups?
We've had an MOU in the past. We've had concerns with the anti-donation clause with the state constitution, but due to the COVID pandemic and the numbers being lower, not being able to host any events and the loss of revenue, we are proposing that we enter into agreement for in-kind services, that they provide maintenance to both the field and facilities in assistance with park maintenance workers. For this time, this would only be good until their seasons end July 31st.
Okay.
And at that point, then we would revisit to make sure that we're in line with the New Mexico State Constitution of the anti-donation with lease agreements in the future.
Thank you. Any questions? Any discussions? What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Ulibarri?
Approve of MOU with La Plaza Little League and Las Vegas Little League.
I second that, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Mr. Ulibarri, a second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Olivari Jr. and a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for taking your time. I saw your baby in the background. So
Oh, yes.
Thank you so
Sorry.
much for taking your, no, that's fine. Thank you for taking your time tonight.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks. Next order of business.
We have item number 13, request approval of the lodger's tax recommendation to provide funding to the Citizens Committee on Historic Preservation, CCHP, to fund the marketing and advertising campaign that promotes the city of Las Vegas as a key destination for Santa Fe Trail bicentennial visitors. We have Kutuk Bakhtal, our lodger's tax board chair, and Frank Gerskins with CCHP.
Go ahead, gentlemen. Thank you.
Council and Mr. Mayor, this is Bill Hendrickson. Krutek had to step out for family issues. He was on board here for most of the meeting. So
Okay,
I'll
that's
just
fine.
take his place. And also we have Frank Burskins here from CHP. So Lodgers Tax has approved, the Lodgers Tax Board has approved $5,000 to CCHP to engage a professional travel writer, develop press releases and travel articles concerning the Santa Fe Trail Bicentennial that's coming up this fall. And so if there's some questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I had one question.
Yes.
And this would be to Scott or maybe even Jesus. If we approve this $5,000 here, am I correct, Scott or Jesus, that we must still follow, even though this money is going towards CCHP, they must still provide for the procurement process, they must follow the procurement process in order to secure this professional travel writer to the city? Am I correct?
Your question is there something in here that allows, I don't see anything that allows us in here to go around procurement.
I'm just making sure that, so we're going to give lodgers tax funding, which is taxpayer, not taxpayer, but well, it's taxes basically to CCHP, but to ensure that there's procurement followed with the $5,000 that we give to CCHP in return when we get that they meet their deliverables. I guess I can say.
So if they're going to hire a writer, do they have to go through procurement in order to secure a contract with the writer?
Yes.
The details to that I would have to discuss with Helen. She's, I don't think I'm almost positive she's not on tonight, but I'd want to have a discussion with her regarding those details before I gave a conclusive answer.
Counselor, I guess we need to hear from Helen too, but to make an allocation to CCHP is not subject to the procurement of a private organization.
The funding goes to the nonprofit through the lodger's tax. I don't believe we're subject to that same requirement.
Okay, so where in our, because we didn't get a packet that had the actual proposal, the specifics in the proposal. I mean, it just has item and it does say in general, but the actual proposal that we know what the specific deliverable is to the city for the 5,000.
Those deliverables were stated clearly in the lodger's tax proposal that lodger's tax requires. It's an infrastructure or an event proposal that's around 10 pages that has got all of the detail, including the allocation of expenditure and the deliverables in it. I'm not clear on how lodger's tax works with the council, but all of that information was part of the original proposal to lodger's tax.
So I guess the important part here is again, and I've said this in the past and I'll say it again, at the end of the day, the lodger's tax is a advisory capacity as to how to spend lodger's tax funding. It's unfair to this mayor and council that we don't get what the deliverable is. All we have is an item discussion, an item topic on our agendas, and we should be also seeing those deliverables to ensure that us as the council are held accountable for those lodger's tax, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are affording the spending on these tax of these dollars. So I'm suggesting from here on out that we get those proposals in our packets.
From CCHP standpoint, we would like to see and encourage a process developed to where we can provide the accountability. We particularly, for example, with our digital work, we have a lot of data that backs up everything that we're doing, and I think that's the direction that CRUTEC and the advisory board is focused on. From our standpoint, I think providing those deliverables in the future, if that's part of the lodger's tax advisory board's responsibility, those of us that make and put the energy into putting these submissions in, which takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, we welcome accountability to it. Matter of fact, it would separate the shaft from what's where the grain is in all of this.
Yeah. And no disrespect, Mr. Burskins, if you sit in our shoes here, we're held accountable to this, and at the end of the day, if some misspending is happening, lodger's tax isn't going to be held responsible. Lodger's tax board isn't going to be held accountable. It's going to be the city council. So, it just, now that I do more research and the accountability and what our responsibility is with this, and we have a governing body that totally supports accountability, that we start seeing these documents, because we haven't seen them in the past. It's just been, okay, well, we're going to spend this much amount of money. And that's why I asked earlier that, we want an update on where we are with lodger's tax, on deliverables, on all this spending that's happening, because we've never received that. And this board is totally, ready to make sure that we're spending that right, because at the end, we just had the audit earlier. And of course, we didn't have nothing, but we want to ensure that we're doing our due diligence and making sure that the tax dollars are spent wisely. And no disrespect to you. I know this wasn't to you. I guess this would come more from community development, that we should have been given this documentation. And from this point forward, that hopefully that's what happens.
Well, I have a question or a comment. If they've already completed an application and it was approved, right, by the committee, the advisory committee, we could table this to next week and make sure we get the application. If it's already been filled out and the lodgers committee has it, correct?
You know, Mr. Mayor, this goes back to the bulletin boards, the billboards. You know, we asked for the first time around, they came around and what happened? They didn't have no documentation, no supporting finances, nothing. And then we put it back on the agenda and they brought back where the locations were at, how much traffic goes through there, who it affects, how much it costs, and the whole works. It was a breakdown on there. And I think that's what we're expecting from this. We want to know where all this journalism and what newspapers, what places are these magazines and guidebooks going to? Are they in California and Arizona, China? Where are they going? I think we just want a little bit of accountability. And I think CCHB, when they do this request to the lodger's tax, I imagine the lodger's tax is asking you for some kind of supporting document as to how you're spending this money, and you know, not just sending somebody on a vacation, for instance. So I agree with councilors here that we need to have accountability, and we need to know where all this money is going to, because ultimately at the end of the day, we are responsible for it. I mean, and if it's not working for the city, and if it's, then we need to change tactics. I know, for instance, and this has nothing to do with this request, but yesterday we had a request from Lodger's Tax that was denied for, I don't know, $9,000 to advertise Las Vegas and its fiestas. And we're going to bring that back next meeting, because you know what? That's well deserving. And that brings economic development to Las Vegas. And for that to be denied is a slap in the face to this city. So we have legit concerns, and we want answers, and we want to keep people accountable. And we need to know where this money is being spent, and we want accountability. And if Lodger's Tax didn't keep you accountable, well, we are. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one last question. Mr. Burskins, is there a time-sensitive deadline for, in order to get all this done, to make sure that it gets on that in those magazines? Is there time-sensitive that we have deadlines that we have to meet, or you have to meet?
Yeah, there are several events. For example, on August 6th and 7th, the Solar Car Challenge, which is a national event following on the Route 66 Santa Fe Trail, is coming through Las Vegas, on its way to Santa Fe and then back to Las Vegas. That event attracts university students from all over the country, with hundreds of followers that are going to be in Las Vegas on the 6th, and again following up on the route back. In order to adequately inform and promote Las Vegas as a overnight destination to fill heads and beds, we have to get that messaging out. There's also a program coming up in November on the Santa Fe Trail Bicentennial that is attracting over a couple of hundred people booked in hotels in Las Vegas. In order to inform, the sooner we get the messaging out, the more we get Las Vegas in front of people, allow them to plan their events, plan their overnight stays. Timeliness is always important in trying to advertise and market of the events going on all summer. And then when we add the Fridays al Fresco, which is part of the promotional aspect of this, the sooner it gets done, the better.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but so if we were to table this and we get the budget and put it on next week, mayor's council meeting, is that going to cause any problems with your deadlines?
No, not in a week.
Okay.
But I would like to comment that in the lodger's tax in the April 1st meeting, what we're running into from a nonprofit's perspective in terms of trying to promote events and build infrastructure, we continue to run into obstructions that keep pushing this further and further out. With $197,405 surplus in the lodger's tax budget, and we're limited to $5,000 per request from the council. Right now, that's taken us 2 months to try to even get a $5,000 proposal passed where we can actually get it going. There's a question of efficiency in terms of promoting the city and promoting events, but when you're from a nonprofit trying to manage that and being restricted by delay after delay, there's not much more we can do. We're putting in hundreds of hours in trying to get these promotions put together and planned, and somewhere we need to get some coordination in terms of let us know what the council needs so that we can address it directly, and we'll get that in these proposals. But somewhere we need to start getting a little bit of cooperation between all the groups.
Well, I think we've been pretty clear. You know,
You're muted.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I think we've been pretty clear. We've sent a message since day one that we want people to be accountable, and that's nonprofits or lodger's tax or any organization. We got to be transparent to our public and what we're doing with these tax dollars. And with the billboards, the same thing happened. And we need to make sure that we know where this money is going. Do you know what these magazines, newspapers, journalism, magazines, and guidebooks, it says on here that they're going nationally and internationally distributed. Do you know the point locations?
The proposal requires there's research involved in terms of trying to identify travel writers around the country that will pick up an article or pick up a story about Las Vegas. And the proposal is researching and identifying and taking advantage of writers that are willing to pick up a story about Las Vegas. That takes time to develop those relationships and also trying to identify who will pick it up and what the cost will be. One doesn't just, and I think it would be very inappropriate for CCHP to blurt out that we're going to put ads in 5 different magazines and not know whether those magazines are relevant, whether they're going to get the audience, what writers are going to write the right stories about us. There's a lot of work behind the scenes in order to get that done. And that research is what this proposal is about. It's not just identifying the magazines.
And I understand that. But my question was, do you know the locations of where these magazines and literature and guidebooks are going to be distributed to, nationally or internationally? What areas areas are we sending them to?
We have identified 49 contacts: the Albuquerque Journal, the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, the Arizona Republic, LA Times, the Washington Post, the San Francisco, New Mexican. I can go on and on. I can also share that in the Connect Las Vegas mobile application that the council approved last year, that mobile application, the top 3 states that are using that application are California, Arizona, Colorado, and Texas. Of the top cities in the country, they're Los Angeles, Santa Fe, Phoenix, Arizona. So we're already seeing that reach taking place. That the advantage of digital is that we can measure every bit of that. When we get into trying to spread the message into the travel magazines and their social media, the data isn't as clear as what we get from pure digital. But Our objective, and I think CCHP's taken the lead among the nonprofits, that we're developing digital content and with a sole objective of making that as accountable and as transparent as we possibly can.
Frank, and I understand what you're telling me, and I fully support CCHP and the events that they've had and what they do. The only thing that we're asking is for you to attach to this just simply where all this literature is headed out to. That way we can have some kind of documentation about the impact that it has to Las Vegas and where people are coming from. And when they come to visit us and they sign the visitor's log, we know that it had an impact from these magazines and from this magazines and booklets. That's all we're asking.
Thank you. What's the
Mr. Mayor, one more comment, and I'm gonna be as blunt as I can. Mr. Burskins, with all due respect, you just made a comment that has been said from within the city of Las Vegas and many community members that have said obstruct. This council is not obstructing any progress whatsoever. We're being held accountable to the constituents and to the taxpayers. It upsets me that this is even coming within our own darn department, and I'm sick and tired of it. We are elected officials of this community to make sure that this money is spent wisely in the past. And I guarantee you, like I said, if I call for an audit to a certain department, I guarantee you that if we did an internal audit, there has been some of this funding that has not been held accountable the proper way. So what we're doing here is we're ensuring that money is spent wisely. And you mentioned that you had all this information on, what specific newspapers these were going to be advertised in. The city council, this is all we got. None of that information has been given to us. So what's been happening is Lodgers Tax or whoever's been in charge hopes that this council or any council rubber stamps whatever happens, and that's not going to happen while I'm here. And I'm glad that we have a council that ensures that from here on out there's accountability. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm sorry I'm upset, but you know what? I am not an obstructionist. I'm making sure, and I'm being held accountable to my constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
And I want to
I need
make
a motion on the floor, please.
I want to make one last comment. And I apologize because you're getting kind of caught in the process. It's the department director who should have attached the correct forms, with your budget and the amount to where it's going. That's all we're saying. We want to see that. We don't want to just see one page. And I apologize because you're kind of getting caught in between the process. But it's up to the department director to provide that to us. That's all I had to say, Mayor. You can go ahead and move on with the
Thank
motion.
you. I'll call for a motion on this item, please.
I would motion that we table this item to our next meeting, which would be May 19th, until we receive the proposal that was submitted
Thank you.
to.
There's a motion on the floor. Second, please. Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya? You're muted, Counselor.
He said yes.
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Rodriguez, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Item 14, request approval of Lodgers Tax recommendation to provide funding for marketing the Friday Al Fresco event. We have, I believe, Chuck Braco and Bill Hendrickson.
Council, Dr. Taylor mentioned earlier about when we brought up the subject of fiestas and the budget monies for the upcoming events for Friday Al Fresco and the expanded program over the 4th of July weekend and then carrying on through October. So it'd probably be best to have Chuck discuss, the budget requirements for that event, or those events, I should say. It's more than one.
Mayor, Council, the original request was for $14,145. The Lodgers Tax Board allocated $5,000, leaving a negative balance of $9,145 that's needed to promote the events in radio and various media. So that's where we stand now. We went before them yesterday, I believe, and it was a dead motion. So
It was a what?
it was a dead motion. The commissioner or board member Garcia made a motion. He did not get a second, therefore it was a dead motion.
Was there an explanation for that?
Not that I believe, sir.
Just moved on, huh?
Yes, sir.
Chuck, Mr. Mayor. So Chuck, going back to the same thing, and I don't know, because it's a city request, should we be following the same thing as far as requesting a proposal for Lodgers Tax that you submitted? Do you have that information?
The application was not, I do not have that application that was submitted to Lodgers Tax.
So let me ask this question. Would it be a detriment if you would put that same proposal that you gave to Lodgers Tax, so we have the documents, that would have everything that you submitted for next meeting, so with the full total proposal to council?
I mean, we really need to get moving on the advertising portion of these events. The events, as you know, started last Friday. It's a total of 40 concerts, so we're kind of behind the 8 ball on this, so we really need to move on, make some kind of decision.
And I know that we've seen, we've seen what you've done with Alfresco. You've presented before. We know the details, and obviously you're short.
I believe, Councilman, the concern was from Board Member Sandoval that we were advertising with Raton, a radio station out of Raton, and her belief was that it was not conducive to what we were trying to do. She did not see that the radio stations in Raton would behoove our event. So that was her concern.
We do have a breakdown of all the media outlets that are part of the Friday Alfresco for the full $14,000.
And Bill, Mr. Mayor, and again, I apologize for the frustration tonight. You guys got to, see where we come from, and again, I apologize to those that I might have upset, or you, Mr. Hendrickson. But it'd be very important moving on that we get this, all this information within our packets. It would make the decision making so much easier, and we wouldn't have to, it's sad that Lodgers Tax gets more information than the council, and that's all. I'll leave it at that, Mayor.
We apologize. We definitely dropped the ball and didn't follow up that was not attached to the agenda request.
Bill, can I just make one recommendation? It's the application that doesn't have enough information. The application that people make to Lodgers Tax does not have enough information on it. And it doesn't ask about media outlets, how much is going to go to the Optic, how much is going to go to KFUN, all that stuff. And I think that's the issue here, is that application is too vague. If it just says $5,000 for advertising, if I'm not mistaken, the council wants to see where that money is going to be spent. Am I correct?
Yes.
So maybe the application needs to be improved. Mr.
Attach
Montoya?
that budget to it.
Well, in the case,
Montoya, do you
I'm
have a
just
comment?
speaking on the case of the request for the, at this moment, it was identified, every radio station is identified, for instance, and how much they were going to spend at each of the different venues.
Okay.
So we do have that information. But you are correct, in some cases, the discussion is more on categories of promotion. Some cases they'll spell out, you know, we're going to do this on posters and those type of materials, banners and what have you. In some cases, it is, you're right, it is just general, we're going to advertise in newspapers and whatever without spelling it out exactly how much. But again, the end result is that when they invoice because this is paid in arrears, so they have to spend their money first on a legitimate promotional vehicle, and we reimburse it. So if they're going to say we're going to vote, we're going to advertise in newspapers and magazines, and they use the money for something else other than that, regardless of which one they're advertising in, then that would raise a red flag on the reimbursement. So it's not that we're writing them a check for $5,000 and they get to spend it willy-nilly. They have to give us the invoices to prove that they spent the money where they were supposed to spend the money.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Elaine.
Point of clarification, please. The Lodgers Commission is an advisory committee, correct? So just for clarification, if they have $191,000 that they need to spend and they're a little worried about getting it spent, then if Mr. Griego brings his budget forward to the council asking for the full amount, then the council could approve that, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Councilor Rodriguez.
It is, and that's basically what we're discussing tonight, that the fact that the lodger's tax was working under the premise that there is a cap on certain events, and we recognize that this is a special situation because we're coming out of COVID, and that council would have to approve the additional funding over and above the 5,000.
Okay, thank you for your clarification.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Hendrickson, you're saying that $9,000 that were refused yesterday, mayor and council can't bring it and put it on the agenda and vote on it? And
Yes.
pass it?
Yes.
You're saying we cannot?
Yes, you can.
Well, yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you. And that was the direction at the beginning of the meeting to the city manager. If lodgers tax don't want to promote this city and they have 240% of their budget available, which is 191,000 or so, then city mayor and council have to do their obligation and move this city forward. I'm pretty disappointed, you know, that these requests are being neglected and put to the side with no justification. You know, this is something that the community enjoys. Last Friday, I think we had 180 people out there. All of them except, I guess, 2 that weren't wearing masks. But everybody had a good time overall. You know, we're in the times that we need to get out and enjoy life a little bit too.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Romero.
Mr. Mayor, just to kind of, you know, I don't want the Lodgers Tax Board to kind of feel like I've been throwing them under the bus, but I mean, I have my issues and I brought those up tonight. But I think had they been a little more clear, there was a policy or ordinance, I can't remember, and maybe Cassandra can remind me, but where we capped Lodgers Tax Board to only give $5,000. So I think in their approval of the 5,000, they should have still only approved 5,000, but made the recommendation to council for the additional funding. And Krutik's not here to, to see if that's kind of what happened, but I don't know if they completely shut it down, but that would have been a suggestion that, as if I was chair of the lodgers tax and was supporting this thing, I would have, made the motion to approve the 5,000 and still, make the recommendation, even though they couldn't, under their jurisdiction, do the additional, then you just still, suggest that to the council. But I'm agree with everything, and I know Chuck has been very good as far as letting us know, more or less what's going on. So with that, I totally support the full request for funding.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion I'd like to make a motion that this be tabled till next week's meeting and come in with the budget for the full request that's needed. That's my motion.
Mr. She has a motion, but I have a question before, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
So Scott, if she tables it right now on the agenda, it says it's only the $5,000. So if she tables it, then it has to come back with the request for 5,000. Am I right?
It does, if it gets tabled the way it is now at 5,000, it'll come back off the table as 5,000, but the council can take it up and can change that number at council's discretion. Council doesn't need an updated recommendation to increase that number. Council can raise the number, council can decrease the number at council's sole discretion.
Okay, so for the interest of transparency, so those that might look at the newspaper, look at the agenda would be the same thing as it is tonight, but if we increase it, could somebody file something and say, hey, well, we didn't go to the meeting because only 5,000 was requested, but if it was more, we wanted to challenge it or go under public input?
I'm sure if somebody wanted to file a complaint, they could file a complaint. That seems to be the most recent pattern of conduct, is a lot of frivolous complaints. So I would expect you might get one or two. I wouldn't be particularly worried about it. Council can amend, like I said, the council can amend the amount of money at their discretion. So I don't think that you need to, to be concerned about that. What they knew, what the public knew, was that the council was going to be considering money regarding the lodgers tax stuff, and whether the council increases it or decreases. I mean, we can't. There's no way to possibly publish notice and for Cassandra or anyone else to guess that council wanted to increase it from whatever it is now to $15,000. I mean, there's no way for us to publish notice of that.
Okay.
Council has some discretion here.
Okay, thank you, Scott. So with that, Mr. Hendrickson did say that, of course, we don't have it here, but Mr. Hendrickson did say that he did have a list of all the information and that everything was, the full 14,000 does fall within that. So I would ask Mrs. Rodriguez, instead of tabling it, why don't we just approve it tonight?
Just for a point of clarification, I was just trying to be consistent.
Okay.
With the previous request, because we did ask the previous gentleman to attach a budget. I just being consistent, but if.
Okay, I second that. I second that then. Fair enough. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Motion by Elaine Rodriguez, a second by David Romero. Roll call, please.
Councilor Montoya?
No.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Rodriguez, a second by Councilor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
The last item, item 15, request approval of the MOU between the city and Tierra Encantada Farmers Market. Mr. Hendrickson?
Mayor and council, I think previously that the farmers market, and also Ms. Diane Lindsay is on board here with us tonight as well. If you have any questions about the farmers market, I'm not sure previously whether we've had MOUs with the farmers market using the facilities on the corner of Hot Springs and Mills. And so we thought it prudent to create an MOU between the city and the farmers market. You should have that as an attachment. And we have an agreement of what the farmers market's going to provide to the community and
You broke up, Bill. I can't hear you. Sorry. Bill, we can't hear you.
Mic is on.
Your mic is on. Dr. Taylor, I need to ask this and maybe a question from Scott. Why wouldn't this MOU being seen as anti-donation? Because we're donating the services at that location to a group.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think if you look at the MOU, it does require them to make a contribution. They have to pay the city an amount of equal to $10 per day for each vendor who arrives. And so we're not providing it to them for free.
Sorry, I got logged out. I'm not sure what that's all about.
I would like Bill to continue his.
Dr. Taylor,
Yes,
is there something in your office that's interfering with your?
He has two videos on. He needs to disconnect one. You have two of you, Bill.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is Bill Hendrickson. I'm back if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
I had a legal question.
Mayor, I think Bill's on now, and I think he's working. But basically, what he said was this doesn't violate the anti-donation clause because there is some contribution on behalf of the farmers market.
Is it an equitable contribution?
You know,
So in other words, if another group came to us and said, we'd like to have that space on Saturday and Wednesdays, and I'd like to offer you $500 a day.
Well, once we've got, we've got it. We'll have it in a memorandum of understanding, which isn't a contract. Breaking a memorandum of understanding is significantly less than a contract because it's literally just you're memorializing. Hey, we have this understanding. You guys are going to do, whatever it is, whether it's maintenance or it's a small fee based on the number of heads they get going through the farmers market. It's a memorandum of understanding. If somebody else comes through and and wants to use the building and they want a contract with us for a significant amount of money, or more money than what's in the MOU, that's up to council. This is city property. Council can make the decision whether or not they want to, continue to.
Thank you for the clarification.
Uses or not.
Thank you for the clarification. Anybody else? Mr. Romero? Mike?
Scott, so with this, and for clarification, Mr. Mayor, on item number 2 on the purpose, it says the market shall pay the city an amount equal to $10 per day for each vendor who arrives. So who will be collecting that, or how are we being accountable, or how are we ensuring that the accountability on that is?
I don't have the answer to that. I have to defer to Bill. I don't know what kind of setup they have to monitor which vendors are there and how many are there and all that.
Hang on just 1 second. Let me pull this up.
It's the function of the organizer of the farmers market to keep track as to who parks there, what they charge, and all that stuff, and to regulate what's being sold. It's the organizer of the farmers market.
Okay, so yes, the MOU does specify that, but they can offset for the in-kind payment that are listed in Exhibit A.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Montoya.
Yeah, I had a question on Tierra Encantada Farmers organization. Are they a organization, a 501c, or what are they? Just a group? Nobody knows?
I believe they're 501c3.
You believe?
Diane?
Okay. Now, Mr. City Manager, we got some appropriations from the legislature to fix that roof. How is that going to affect this at all? Or where are we on that? I know that the inside is all gutted out, but on the roof, we got some funding.
Yep, and we're, I don't know if you've awarded the contract, but we got a bid and it came in exactly at the amount, more or less very close to the amount that was, that the appropriation allowed. And we went through the whole bid process. I think that there were several bidders. We went to the low bidder came in at an amount that was just slightly over it, by a very small amount.
Okay, so it's in the process.
Yes.
Okay. But these people will not be using the inside. They'll be using the outside only at the present time.
They will be using the inside for just some storage, but that's it.
All right.
They're not going to be using it for business.
Okay. Yeah, because the floors and the walls and everything's pretty bad shape. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Taylor.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Ulibarri?
to approve an MOU between the city and the Tierra Encantada Farmers Market.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Ulibarri, a second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Olivari Jr. and a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carried.
Thank you. Next order of business.
That was the last business item, Mr. Mayor. If there is a need for executive session, that's the last.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn.
There's a motion by Mr. Ulibarri. A second, please. A second to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call is please.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Olivari Jr., a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work, Cassandra. I appreciate it. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Scott, everybody, thank you.
Thank you.